Here's something we hope you'll really like.
It's time for Planet Green.
We have launched.
We have completely launched. We've started the show, and it is Planet Green Trees. We're about to embark 2 hours of medical marijuana and marijuana reform in Michigan.
We're traveling through a dimension both of sound and ideas. We're at a place where the mind can comprehend and devise a wireless transmitter, measure time and light. Astonishing? Perhaps. But you can find it in a place that's known as...
Planet Green Trees! Attention, ladies and gentlemen. The Planet Green Trees show is underway with your host, attorney Michael Komorn.
Welcome, everybody. Listen to Planet Green Trees. Officially episode 469. Seems like a lot. I'm your host, Michael Komorn of Komorn Law PLLC. I'm excited
It does seem like
to have you all, what do you say?
He said that's a lot of 69.
A lot of 69.
I thought he was saying he was 469.
Well,
As in favor of.
Are we in,
I'm against it. There'll be a debate.
Are we on the middle
The
school
pros and
playground right
cons.
now, kids?
Yes.
Michael?
Gotta weigh it all
The
out.
answer is yes.
Come on, we should keep it clean, guys.
Clean.
All right, Michael, would you like to take your show back over
Just
again?
teasing.
No,
I'm
it's
sorry,
good. Ellen's,
I'm sorry.
Suppository Ellen's already
Oh,
ready to get clean.
That was your job. Did you get it? Did you do it?
No,
Are you doing it live or did you prepare a video?
no, I'm gonna have to postpone that.
Okay, well, next week, Alan.
We did not get
Next
the
week.
we didn't get the notes for that at the Planet Green Trees meeting. I don't know what's wrong with you. All right, listen. Episode 469. We're calling it "Who Belongs and Who Decides Who's Crazy." Someone try to figure that out.
Yeah.
I thought it was same shit, different day.
Same
Well, that
Get onto
applies.
that later.
That applies.
Same shit, different.
That's the
day.
rant. That's what the rant's going to be, I think.
Yes, yeah.
All right, so welcome everybody. Our people listening on Facebook and YouTube. We appreciate your support. We hope to be entertaining tonight. If we're not, it's not my fault. It's the people that I'm about to introduce. I would start with to my immediate right. Many may know him as the Space Cowboy.
Or the gangster of love.
Gangster of Love.
He is the gangster of love.
Some people call him Maurice.
Blast off!
He rides a motorcycle.
Yes, he does.
His name's Steve Miller. Please welcome Steve Miller. We had a great time today. Steve Miller was
We
my
did.
companion
Fly
all day.
Fly
Was
like
the tour bus driver of the day. I do enjoy it when I get to do that.
Did you fly like an eagle?
No, we did the speed limit very carefully.
Metaphorically speaking, we did fly like an eagle, or as we discussed along the way, we were riding the dragon in our Dragon Law mobile.
Riding
Yeah.
the dragon.
And that's,
We're gonna
I
have-
think you need
I think
to...
we're going to have a talk.
We should tell the dragon story later that you told in the car about the importance and the symbolic meaning of the dragon.
All right.
Because I like it, because that was, I liked hearing that.
Yeah.
I have this internal debate because my sister's like, Brother Michael, get over the fucking dragon. Nobody gets it. Nobody cares. What are you talking about? I was like, no, you don't understand. And I'm ready to do that. It's fine. It's what it is. Okay. And over here, we have promising to be entertaining. He looks very well dressed tonight. I saw that he got the memo to come in a suit. I did. Me and you are the only one that are following the rules. But
That's right.
in the world that we live in today, nobody's following the rules anymore.
Nobody.
Rules don't matter. There's
Nobody.
no lawlessness everywhere.
No rules.
The rule of law does not matter. I have a commentary on that. But please welcome the one and only Jim Powers.
Good evening, everybody. Good evening, Michael. It's good to be here. It's good to see everybody's smiling faces.
Jimmy the Pepper.
Yes, sir. Looking forward to a great show. Got a couple of great guests. I see one of them lined up in the queue already.
Zahra.
Very
So,
nice.
She's ready to go.
yeah, looking forward.
We're trying to get to her.
Yeah, let's get to her.
Moving around the room in entertainment promises. Expecting a lot from her tonight. She, of course, is known to many now as the roving reporter for Planet Green Trees. You can find her at the Elevation Station if you have an important story that has to be told. She may even come out with her PGT microphone and interview you.
I will definitely do that. We have some questions. You know
And
what?
we need them answered.
We need answers, quite frankly.
That is the understand. That's the name of the show. Next one, it's like we have a lot of questions and need some answers. Please welcome Amanda Joslin.
Thank you. Thank you, Michael. Good to be here.
We're glad to have you in the bunker back there. We got Justin and Tommy, I believe, if I'm not mistaken. Over on the Zoom over here, we have looking hairier than normal. I think he's now not shaving, but that's okay. We love him anyways. His name is Alan Peisner, brother in arms and barrister, sometimes trumpet player. Please welcome Alan Peisner, wherever he is.
Good evening. It's an honor to be here of counsel on behalf of Komorn Law, the best marijuana law firm in the state.
He's always good for a plug, too. I forget that.
He is.
I laid off the Muammar Gaddafi thing. Where's his face? Yes, he's unshaven. See? Okay, there he is. And this would not be Planet Green Cheese if we didn't have the stars from Jazz Cabbage Cafe, a contributing podcast. Our dear friends and superhero dynamic duo in their own right. Please welcome the one and only, also known as Big Daddy, the Rick Thompson. Rick Thompson.
Hey, Rick.
Happy day, everyone. Welcome to Planet Green Trees.
Hey, Rick.
Rick,
I didn't have anything else more poetic today, just the hi.
That's fine. We appreciate that. And, of course, the talkative one and the one responsible for everything on the other side of the Zoom, Jamie Lowell. Jamie Lowell.
Hello, everyone. Glad to be here. A lot of great shit to talk about tonight. Also, looking forward to it.
Zahra's a great guest. Should be good.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you, guys.
She's in the queue. We shouldn't make her wait, should we? Let me tease the topics, then we can get her.
Tease the topics.
We'll tease the topics.
Tease those things.
I'll waive the rant or the point I wanted to make about the rule of law.
You're waiving the rant?
Temporarily.
Temporarily waiving the rant.
So the topics, so first of all, the guest that we have, of course, is Zahra Abbas, who is advocate for a long time on a lot of different topics relative to cannabis and medical cannabis and epilepsy. And as we understand, she is now part of the Cannabis Caucus. We're going to talk to her about that. She's in the queue. Known to many as Dr. Detroit, but also a professor over at University of Detroit. He's a cannabis and war reform activist, both in the this region and also on the West Coast. And he'll be calling a little later the one and only Mike Whitty. And those are our guests calling in. The topics we want to talk about are that our esteemed governor signed bill into law, one that allows for the roadside drug testing known as Senate Bill 718. Number two, the Attorney General, Dana Nessel, wants new central agency for police oversight, more transparency. Zahra, as we mentioned, is here from the Cannabis Caucus. The Supreme Court delivers a major victory to LGBTQ employees. Should we expect all the other critical opinions that are on the docket to be the same? Good question. Really the better question. In topic 6, of course, Steve Miller's C.E.C, not to be confused with C.C.E segment, yes. The Nectar collector demonstration. And we may get a chance to rant and whatnot. But without further ado, let's get Zahra on, if she can. She's there. She's there. She gets credit for being earlier or on time, either way. It's a dying commitment, being on time, I think. I'm guilty of it all the time. I blame the court.
No!
I blame the court system for doing this to me. They don't respect time. But anyways, Zahra's here, and many may know Zahra from the cannabis community. She's very outspoken and one of the I see like cohesiveness in terms of like bringing the medical cannabis, the epilepsy community, very outspoken. She's had me speak at her groups, and she's got her doctor to be very public about it. But we're on to a new topic now because her involvement in all of this and her advocacy has brought her to get involved with politics more so, I would say. And she's here on behalf of, well, not necessarily on behalf of, she's joining us as herself, but tell us a little bit about the Cannabis Caucus, if you would. First, thanks for being here, and appreciate all the work you do. And
thank you for having me on. So the Cannabis Caucus, I joined, as many did, when it was first formed, but I think due to other politics and just all the other things that we were concentrating on, we haven't really done much with it. So when I saw the opportunity, I mean, it's something that I've always been wanting to become more involved and take on. So I decided to run for vice chair this year, and a couple weeks ago was appointed to it as vice chair since we couldn't hold elections. And our first thing that me and the new chair, Mike McCurdy, did was send letters to the Attorney General and to the governor's office, talking about cannabis policy and looking to see where they're at with the expungements that they promised when they ran, because that is a big part of like cannabis policy and getting the cannabis laws in order.
That's a good question.
So that's what one of our first orders of business, or one of the first things that we want to concentrate on, is getting those expungements.
Zahra, I don't mean to interrupt, but Mike McCurdy sent me a text a couple of months ago and said he may need my help with a project. Would I be interested? Would this be the project, possibly?
If it was a few months, I mean, it might have been about the letters, sending the letters out, but Mike and I, we each wrote, he wrote to the governor's office, I wrote to the Attorney General, and we published them. We sent them into their offices today and published them on our pages. So that could be it.
Okay.
So I'm glad to have you as a guest, because one of the not discussed enough, and certainly not in the mainstream dialogue or discourse in the cannabis world right now, are the remaining social justice issues, which there remain many. And I, unfortunately, am experiencing them in my law practice, you know, and oftentimes it goes without saying that the question, that the elephant in the room, which is, does everybody know that they legalized cannabis? Why are we still prosecuting this? Why are there still people that have convictions? Why are people still on probation? Why are people still in jail or prison? Because they do exist there. And why are people still getting punished as nurses or having a license or any other kind of license? Why are they still insanely treating driving in cannabis in a way that suggests it presents a danger to the extent that that it equates to alcohol or other types of substances? It is beyond the pale, and there's not enough discussion to undo the madness that was associated with the, you know, prohibition of cannabis. But I don't want to digress, and it's not about my view right now. But I say all that because I'm still experiencing in my law practice. But back to you, Zahra. So specifically, the Democratic Party has a cannabis caucus. Is that right?
Mm-hmm.
It was, and people, as we know, at the primary, what was it? What do they call it? What do we go to? The convention.
The convention.
The joining of said caucus was available. A lot of people joined at the convention. A lot of people joined the party to go to the convention so they could vote for those candidates for the cannabis.
There are also other things going on at that convention in the garage.
Right, but the reform of cannabis was one of the issues, and they developed this caucus. Okay, so I saw an interview. This is what made this kind of interesting, because I saw an interview. I don't know who it was that was asking the questions. It could have been you, but it was on a Zoom call, and they were discussing with the Attorney General a couple of things, and one of them was asking about those two things, about pending cases and expungements. Do you know what I'm talking about?
Was it we had Dana for YDM, and we did discuss some of those things.
Yes. So
Certainly did.
Young Democrats in Michigan.
Oh, is that okay? Is that what it was?
Yeah. Thanks, Jamie.
So I was rather disappointed with the answer, because I felt like it was not accurate in the sense that the cases that she said had gone away did not go away. The reasons why she said they didn't go away, or how she described them, were not accurate. They don't reflect the cases that I'm still in representing. And it was kind of shocking, because the representation that was made at that time, and I thought it was on the Cannabis Caucus Facebook page, but nevertheless, the point being that I don't know that all that was accurate. There's another piece of those one of the cases in particular, where the forfeiture seizure violated the 8th Amendment at the time it took place 5 years ago, and still does, and they don't recognize that. In that, this isn't a plea bargain kind of case. This is a case that damages should be paid for violating
for
someone's
depriving
constitutional.
somebody of their property.
100%. But I'm just saying these are existing real issues. Nothing in some of these situations has changed. But what was the takeaway? What has been the takeaway, I guess, from the Cannabis Caucus in terms of some of the promises that have been made or were made at the time of the campaign, and how well they've been fulfilled?
I mean, our takeaway is that we need to put more pressure. We need to talk to them to keep up to their promises. I mean, I know right now the situation with just COVID and just politics in general, there's been a lot going on. But this is something that both the governor and the attorney general, like cannabis policy was one of the issues they ran on, and they so far have not kept up the promises like they were supposed to. There's so much more they could have done, especially during this time where COVID is very much in the jail system. Why are the nonviolent offenders still in there?
Yep.
It's legal. People are making money off of it.
Yep.
They should be out of there.
They should have been out of there.
I'm just going to go ahead and say that Gretchen and both Gretchen and Dana have really shit the bed on the issue, Jim.
Hold on. So I would say this: the what's interesting about all this is that during this period of the lockdown, cannabis was deemed a essential business.
Yeah.
I mean, if we look at how that idea evolved from mere 3 or 4 years ago when they were felonizing people who were caregivers, it's quite remarkable. But
tell that to some of these people that have loved ones sitting in jail.
Okay, I'm going to get to that. The point being that it was deemed an essential business, and in a normal sense. So these are some of the pending social justice issues that remain. Number one, it still remains a Schedule I drug. How can this be in a reality?
Impossible.
Well, there's a lawsuit that was filed.
And there
The Cannabis Caucus might be aware of.
Yeah.
That on behalf of this poet named John Sinclair, a lawsuit was filed. Do you know what the Attorney General's office position was at every single stage? Refute, reject, obtuse.
Yep.
Okay, but we do have a court date coming up, and they're going to go and argue, I imagine, that cannabis should remain Schedule I.
Yeah, that's exactly what
That's
they're
the
going to
position
argue.
they're taking.
Yes.
They say we don't even have a foot to stand on for standing. Like we don't even have the.
Oh, you have no standing.
Well, we lost in the Court of Claims that way, but the Court of Appeals took our case.
Really.
Yeah, but the Court of Claims.
I wonder, does the Cannabis Caucus have a? I mean, I would offer the services, but I'm involved in the case. But like almost as someone to write an amicus brief, like. This legal issue is of interest to the Cannabis Caucus, and they hired a lawyer to file a plea. You know, it could just be something that supports one of the other briefs or what have you. Or
Let me just jump right in for real quick. I'm on the executive board of the Cannabis Caucus also. We're in the middle of reorganization. So the structure that you're looking for from the caucus is being built at this time. We simply don't have the infrastructure to do some of the things you're talking about. But the action Zahra described, sending letters and things, certainly capable of doing that. But we'll be in a much better position in about 30 days to be able to effectuate some of those plans. James, you've been in these meetings too.
Yeah, I've been in the meetings as well. I wasn't part of the original group. Rick was, and emails have gone out to all of those people via Zahra and Mike and a couple of the others who have been around. And I think in part, this is we want to recruit some people too, Zahra. Isn't that correct? We need
So I mean, I was going to say pretty much what Rick and Jamie just said. Right now we're basically just getting to know what the caucus can do, what our goals are. So it's going to take us like a few weeks to a month to like reorganize. Mike and I both felt that one of the important things was to send a letter from the caucus to the Attorney General and to the governor, just to make them aware of this is what we want, this is what you guys promised. So that was mainly our first step, and right now we're looking to see who is still interested in being in the caucus, who's still interested in taking a leadership position, and what is it that we can do moving forward. Because a lot of people, once it was legalized, they're like, okay, that's it, we're done. But we're far from done. That's from what I've learned in general is that this is just the first step. There's so much more that we have to get done.
Yeah, Alan, we're talking about you being the treasurer.
Yeah, I had a couple questions, if I may ask. The first, most important questions is why am I not a member of the Cannabis Caucus?
I don't know. Go to the Facebook page and join. We'll make you a member. Are you still a member of the Michigan Democratic Party?
Yes.
Alan, I know why.
Okay.
Do you know why? Because you don't want to be
Not a
part of a
chance,
club that would
Jim.
have you as a member. That's
Not
why.
a chance.
I mean, I don't know. I think I should be,
Well, listen,
but I was
okay.
at the convention. I was at that 8 a.m. meeting. All right, and the next question is for Zahra is
Alan is volunteering to write an amicus brief
Alan at
on
the
behalf of the
convention?
Cannabis Convention. There you go.
Alan was
He wants to
seriously
be a
discussed as
member.
being the treasurer.
Let me
Right.
settle this. Let me settle this right now. Alan
Okay.
is going to be a member. He's going to be on some committee that has a lot of responsibility, and he's agreeing to do the amicus brief. It's settled.
Boom.
Let's move on.
Boom.
Bam.
if I may,
He's raising his right hand and swearing
Alan
and agreeing.
Peisner's
Look at that.
Cannabis
if
Caucus
I may, I have
Council.
more questions for Zahra, if I may.
Do you agree or not agree?
Well, I might, but I mean,
Agree.
I certainly could help. I certainly can help. But the
Just
next question for
agree.
Zahra is, how often does the Cannabis Caucus meet, and for how long?
Well, Mike and I have been pretty much talking every few days. We've had, since both Mike and I were appointed, we've had 2 meetings. But we're hoping to start doing either weekly meetings or gathering, especially now that we can't all get together, just virtual meetings. So that's one of the things that we're going to try to start doing soon. And we post everything on our page and group for updates.
I can't resist. What Alan was really asking is, would you guys consider Zooming? Alan is a Zoom show-off. If he can get involved in a Zoom group of people, he will Zoom like crazy. He'll abuse his Zoom privileges. So if you tell him that you guys will consider Zooming, he is all in. Am I right, Alan? Isn't that what you're saying?
Boom.
It depends on the
Bam!
topic. Now, when you
The
talk
first
about
2
a
meetings
topic-
were Zoom.
On the
if you
topic.
talk about a topic that I'm very interested in, such as cannabis, then I'm all for Zoom. As you know, for the marijuana law section, I've been active with the marijuana law section.
In what
Zoom.
capacity? As a Zoom king. Go ahead, say it.
Kaboom! Zoom. Of some sort.
Well, in the educational capacity for the marijuana law section, and also
Yeah,
getting people
the
together.
happy hour. Alan's the king of the. He lures you in with his happy hour. He's all over the internet
Yeah.
offering into
Yeah.
this thing, and then he gets you in there and
In the
What
Zoom
is-
and
room.
zooms you. You got to be
What
careful.
exactly do you get with a happy hour Zoom?
You get-
What do you get?
You get Alan smoking a joint.
It's Alan,
I do not smoke a
ingesting
joint.
cannabis in front of other adults and controlling the mute and video button. He likes that. He's a. That's what he does.
I never have to mute anybody.
Okay,
though.
listen. Did you have any other questions, Alan, about your membership and leadership role that you're going to play?
Yes. What is the annual fee for membership?
None for the caucus. It's you just have to be a member of, I mean, at least none that I'm aware of, but you just have to be a member of the Michigan Democratic Party
All right. Is there any
to join our caucus.
is there any initiation or procedure I have to go to?
Initiation.
A hazing.
Not
if
a
you will.
chance, Jim.
No, hey.
We'll just pass the joint around. That's it.
Okay. Well, seriously, Zahra, I am interested in it, and I don't know why I'm not a
You know
member.
what I'm
You
saying.
don't know why I'm not a member, so that's maybe I should be a member.
It's restructuring now, so it's
Alan,
you
when
know.
they-
Yeah, it's this perfect time to join as we're building it back up.
All righty. Very
So-
I
good.
think you're in, Alan.
So
I think
some
you're
of
in.
the.
Alan's going to be Cannabis Caucus Council.
You know, from a private attorney perspective, with the transition taking place, there's a couple of, like lawsuits that we found ourselves in that, if prevailing on, would help solidify cannabis policy reform. Those being this John Sinclair case, and the idea that this has not been capitulated or conceded at this point. And our whole case is based on the MMFLA. And part of it is based on the idea that at the time, the board of the MMFLA consisted of the head of the pharmacy board, who was giving out licenses to people that had money and resources, weren't pharmacists, weren't doctors, and at the same time overseeing the controlled substances, the pharmacy board of those people that were entitled to engage with controlled substances. So that issue, it's still baffling that it's being fought legally, but that's an issue I think that is worthwhile, Democrat or Republican, but it's certainly one that remains out. The other one that we brought up that we were surprised was fought about was the utilization of the faith-based organizations that are contracting with CPS to oversee and supervise CPS issues. It used to be that
That's ugly.
DSS would be the ones that would get called and supervise and be the determine if there was going to be a removal and placement in a state So what happened instead is 5-7 years ago, the state contracted with various faith-based religious groups that were subsequently got the law changed that they could, based on their religion,
That's
that they
terrible.
could
That's very
use
bad.
their religious beliefs to remove children. And one of the religious beliefs was that cannabis was not ever acceptable legally, if it was legal or medically or what have you. So if a parent was a caregiver, for example, they would recommend removal, or if a kid was moved from a house and they need to put it temporarily, and the parent or the grandparent was a caregiver, that would not be an option. They place it in some other random in one of the people that is part of their religious organization. They just pre-screen them or whatever. So this is, and they get paid, and there's a financial motive. And
what is that financial motive for the faith-based organization, Michael?
Well, they're getting people to pay into their membership. They're getting people to come to their meetings to get qualified. They're having to pay money to learn and become blah, 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 blah. And then there's a fee, of course, for the placement and all that. But the...
is that a standard fee, or does it differ?
It varies, but it's certainly something that creates an incentive of the organization. But the point I'm making here is that for the same issue existed in the state of Michigan regarding LGBTQ.
Yes, you got it.
And there was a lawsuit on behalf of a parent who was discriminated against for their identity, sexual identity. The child was not placed or was removed from the home or couldn't adopt, what have you. And all based on the religion of the contracted service provider for this CPS. And I know that our Attorney General, for example, settled that lawsuit regarding the LGBTQ when she became Attorney General, taking over for Bill Schuette, because he was fighting the same issue.
I bet he was.
On our issue, cannabis, we've been kicked out of every single court. We've been opposed to every single. We filed in the Court of Claims, Court of Appeals, Supreme Court, everywhere, kicked out. Couldn't even get in. Why? It wasn't because the Attorney General's like, we agree. I mean, it's a serious problem, and I don't think that. I mean, I at least does the policy of both of those people in that really that's okay? Anyways, those are the two issues, and then of course I think there's forfeiture that exists, and I think there's I mean, I'm at the stage where there's almost, I think that they should start, I mean, let me say this. The failure to take action regarding some program to remove convictions so people could get jobs, to remove convictions, people get their gun rights back so people could remove jobs so they could vote maybe, is absurd at this point. If our governor, who's been criticized for executive orders, some love them. Some love the executive orders. Some hate them. Some don't like them because they're not supposed to, the law's not supposed to be made by the executive branch. What have you. In the capacity of all the things that she's been doing and and being upheld in her legal authority to do so, the idea that she couldn't promulgate some kind of executive order to expunge or program and push a program as being her main agenda item, or the Attorney General for that matter.
Easy to do.
Yeah, stroke of the pen.
Yeah, but and that's what made like the caucus and people in general upset with them about is that okay, you deemed cannabis in its whole as an essential service and kept places open, which is great because that's really that's something we needed. But deeming something as essential and then keeping the people locked up when you know it's dangerous it's like you didn't do anything, and that made a lot of people frustrated, and that made us frustrated. So that's why we decided to tackle that as one of the first issues of the caucus as we were building it. In our letters, both of us, what we mentioned is one of the people that's still in prison. That's who we really concentrated on using his story, Michael Thompson.
Yep.
So that's one of the people we wrote to about in our letters. Is how is he still in jail for something that was deemed an essential service and that's legal now? So him and everybody that's in there for nonviolent offenses should be released immediately, and that's something that we're hoping to do.
I mean, seriously, they shouldn't even think twice after seeing that letter and get the guy out. But they're just gonna not know what to do with it. See, they just don't.
They know what to do with it.
They just don't know what to do
Sure
with
they-
it. It's not
sure
that
they
easy,
do.
Jim.
Sure it is. It's easy.
There's another person. His name's something like, and it's Barton Morris's
Stroke of
client.
the pen.
Barton Morris's client,
Yes, it's stroke of the
Rudy
pen.
Garbo, I think.
It literally is.
Garmo maybe, but he was. It was like right before they did the MMFLA.
Gammo.
It's a
Good with
Gammo. He was
Yeah.
he's like a caregiver or whatever. Got sent to. So the idea that people with marijuana charges aren't in prison is absurd. They exist, and whoever's perpetuating that statistic is not being honest. And whatever mechanism and reading the data that they are people in there for marijuana to remove them from that category is not fair. There's they know their charges and blah 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 blah.
Blah, blah, blah,
And I'll tell you
blah.
something else. In that interview, Zahra,
Flapping the gums.
there was an explanation that was given by the Attorney General of the position she took regarding the legislation that was pending. Do you know what I'm talking about? There's been some legislation introduced. There's been some legislation testified to or about in various committees about expungements. She took a very specific position why she was opposing the original introduction of the legislation, how she testified before it with recommendations, but it just remains in limbo. It has not moved to a point where it's going to get voted, or does it sound like it's going to pass? Maybe Rick or Jamie have heard something from Senator Irwin or Yusuf Rabi or anybody. But I listened to that interview, and I've heard her speak publicly about this, and it shouldn't be so difficult. Like the general principles, it's kind of like the cannabis reform. The arguments about do you need to, legalize all, everything, or do you just want to have, people not get arrested for having an ounce of marijuana? Here we could get rid. There's a category of cases that fall within a category, that they could easily define and say, oh, those were technical MMA violations. Oh, those were people charged with these transport law that they revoked and they got convicted for that. Bam, bam, those are easy.
Bam.
You know what I mean?
Stroke of the pen.
And besides,
Stroke of the pen, Jim.
they can direct Pam to do that too.
Yeah.
Pam runs the computers. They run the table, so to speak.
They have pens too at PAM.
Anyways,
being the Prosecuting Attorneys Association of Michigan for our listeners.
God damn it! It's just sometimes it's just so hard just to do what's right.
anyway, so we've had
Yeah,
the.
it is.
So
It
so
is.
let me ask some. Zahra, is what's your impression of because I know we were all involved in the campaign. We probably saw you. Last time I saw you was probably something dealing with
At one of the conventions.
right? With the convention, or after the convention, the election night or whatever, and
Was it in the garage at the convention?
maybe, but
Alan knows about the.
but I'm saying and before
does.
that it was on the
Dope
campaign
smoking
trail.
in the garage.
It was a campaign trail,
She was
probably
not
for
with us in the garage.
for Dana or somebody. You know what I mean? So we know what that was like. We know what it was like running around there, and we knew what the access was. We knew that our issues were important. We knew that we were being listened to. We knew that we were believing in going to provide 2,500 and 2,200 new memberships of the Democratic Party,
Boom.
more than they've ever seen.
Like that.
And
I think this.
basically hijacking the convention for.
Yes, we did.
Okay, so with all that being said, do you think that
Man, Pat Miles was pissed.
a synchronized
So it's Tom Leonard. 'cause
equity
It was barely
has
won. She
existed
barely
in
won.
what was asked for, what was given, what was promised? Do you think that there's been a equality or equity that can
No,
be?
sir.
Let Zahra, who is she's an important person on the Cannabis Caucus. Go ahead.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear the last part. What was your question?
I was saying, do you think, when I'm going back to that time when we were very excited. Our candidate was heroic in the things she said, the promises that were made. She gave access. She was accessible. We were promoting her. We brought people, 2,200 new members to the convention, etc. And it was a lot of energy and resources from that community given of their heart, not paid, given free because we
Just
believe.
given freely.
Yeah, and I mean, she said it. I mean, yeah, and I mean, Dana said it herself. Like she wouldn't have won without the cannabis community. So, for either her or not to do what they promised the cannabis community, and I love Dana, I respect her, but they're like she will.
Oh no,
Tommy.
Zahra.
Oh, Zahra, if you can hear us, you went freeze. Right at the.
But we are anxiously awaiting.
She has the Rick Thompson.
Like I said.
Okay, she's gone. Zahra, you zonked out for a second. Start off. Say it again if you would.
You zonked out.
Froze.
You said you love, and respect her. That's where we left off. You love and respect her.
Yeah, I mean, like we love and respect Dana, and I mean, I remember like all the things we helped her with, and
a lot.
Neither her or Gretchen would have won without the cannabis community. So for them to still not do the things that they promised is what's upsetting.
Push this aside.
And the question that I'd asked was, even though that's kind of leading, is, with the energy and resources given, the promises made, has it been a equal or is an equal return? And we're 2 years into it now. We're going into the second year.
No, there hasn't, because I mean, it's like I kind of feel, but I mean, it could be. I kind of feel like they started out like maybe like saying that they're going to keep those promises, and somewhere down the line they just dropped it and didn't do what I believe is how much they could do for the cannabis community.
Yep. You know what the turning point was? Remember when it was right after the election, or right after Dana actually entered office, and they started with the driving debate, and she said that she agreed with the per se limit and that it was something that was needed.
I think she was talking about that beforehand.
Well, whatever.
And we discussed.
That was a big red flag.
She didn't understand that, and I even explained to her that the per se limit is not. And sure enough, the Michigan State Police echoed that exact same.
Yeah, they sure did.
Piece in its thoughts and conclusions, and her instinct that there needed to be one was inaccurate. I think she became educated. I think she may have changed. I thought,
You think?
This is what was one of the things that was unusual. I think a lot of people expected that there would have been more dialogue and discourse in terms of committee or some kind of council that she could rely upon and interact with.
Yeah, and I mean that's one of the things we addressed in our letter is that and both the letter to Dana and the governor is we put in there that we would like to have a meeting, a sit-down meeting. I mean, if it's the lockdown is going to be a while, and or I mean, right now people can meet and everything, but if we can do it via Zoom, or if we could actually sit down and meet with her and see what steps we can take with her help to start putting what their campaign promises were. So that was one of our asks in the letter, is to meet with the cannabis community directly and start addressing those issues.
I think it's a fair ask.
Well, what I was saying is, Jim was trying to identify the turning point, and
that was it. That was it.
I'm disagreeing with you because I think factually she was not educated on it, and I think this position changed before the election. But I could be wrong. But
I think you're right, Mike, because she said at her campaign rallies that she was in favor of cannabis, but we needed to have some sort of regulation for it about driving.
As the
she wasn't specific.
All right, fine. Man with dementia told me this weekend, Jim. I've heard that one before.
But I'll tell you what, Michael, at those same campaign rallies where she was talking about regulation and driving, she very gladly accepted one of my pointers from me. I said, I have 2 pointers for you. Don't call me. Don't give me a robocall. And here's your other pointer. And I gave her one of these, and she smiled and put it in her purse.
So I guess what I was getting at was, I don't know, I'm so distracted by all the
shenanigans.
No, it's fine. No. Wrap it up.
We got to wrap it up. We're a minute over.
Hold on, but so I was okay. The turning point, as I recall, was that there seemed like there was going to be an ongoing interaction.
Yeah.
with a committee of some kind.
In the beginning.
She did.
Wasn't there? There was a committee.
There was one. There was a meeting where she came and
I think
sat
Jamie was part of it.
for 3 hours.
Jamie was there.
I was at one thing once.
Oh, you were there once.
Rick, myself, and Michael were part of that, but that is
3 hours. She sat
that
there
was an
and listened to
idea
us.
more than it was a thing. I think.
3 or 4 hours, and I think she said things like, "What's the MMFLA?"
Wow.
You know, what I mean, like we were throwing around terms like blah blah blah. Use marijuana. You know what I mean? But so I'm just saying, like I think it was. But she wanted to learn. We were all very inspired by it. Very inspired by it. But then later on, we learned that a new committee had been formed of some kind.
Yeah.
Which had the likes of Ken Stecker of Pam.
You were excluded from
good
that
old
one,
Kenny
Michael.
Stecker.
They had.
Yeah.
I heard a lot of the dialogue during this conversation was, what's the most amount of marijuana that someone could have where we could charge them with a felony? Like, that was part of it.
Oh, that's good.
One of the people on
You
the...
gotta have those bright line boundaries.
We still don't know what to do if we see somebody smoking in public.
Yeah, what do we do?
Didn't they spend an entire weekend on this issue and how they're going to determine between civil infraction and misdemeanor? They wasted an entire damn weekend on it, Michael.
Out of that committee, I remember my friend Paul Livonia, city attorney out there, former Wayne County prosecutor Paul, he can remember, called me and wanted to have a conversation with me about exactly like Jamie said it there, which was like, we don't know what, it's still unclear if someone's smoking in public, do we charge them with a misdemeanor or is it blah blah blah? And what about minors? Minors, you guys blew it on the minors thing. The minors aren't included because it only has 21 or older, so all the other laws still apply.
It's not what it says.
What does it say?
It says if you are under the age of 21 and you get caught with marijuana, it is a civil infraction.
And it is an exclusion only for some areas where it's specific. In fact, I think there's a whole issue about the driving. And I think that the language specific in the statute, if you're under 21, you are not subject to any presence. See what I'm saying?
No, I would assume so.
Anyways, but we can read that in a second. Anyways, so so out of that turning point, out of that meeting, I remember Paul Bernier calling me, and then later reading that day in the newspaper that they were proffering the idea that if there wasn't a specific sentence within MRTMA, like if you do this, you get that.
Yeah, here we go.
Then you fall back into the public health code.
The old Ph.D.
Which is what the game, which is the game they played with the MMA, which is if you're not in compliance, you default back into because the MMA did not legalize marijuana. It only made limited protections for a small class of people.
Same thing with MRTMA.
Yeah, but MRTMA, what? MRTMA was intended to legalize marijuana, so what are they talking about? It was such an absurdity, but it was a meeting of the minds amongst the law enforcement leaders.
Of course, we knew they were going to. We all knew it.
Not very bright minds.
Listen,
these guys they should come up with some new tricks.
I don't want to sound
still work.
like
well, they'll probably start in with some mask laws now, Jim.
Oh, boy.
There's probably going to be certain.
We have to take a break.
Oh, yeah,
Zahra,
we got to take a
break. I want to let Zahra go. Zahra, I don't want to come off as sounding like a complainer, even though every time I keep talking, I'm like, God, I'm sounding like I'm complaining today.
Well, there's issues out there, Michael, and they need to be addressed.
All right.
And
Thank you so much, Zahra.
I want to help out if I can, and I want to help isolate the issues that need to, if I can.
He wants to isolate the issues that can be isolated.
I have briefs on them. I have memorandums of law. Go ahead.
Yeah, I'll definitely, either Mike or I will reach out once we, I think right now what we're waiting on before we decide what we're going to do moving forward is, first of all, just seeing who still wants to be part of the caucus and recruit more people, and then see what the answer from the Attorney General and the Governor is before we decide, okay, we're going to try to, either we have to push them more towards the issue and keep fighting and try to set up something, or do we start releasing a list of demands every time, this is what you need to do, and this is so that we can stay in a good relationship as a cannabis community with their offices. So right now it's just to see what they decide on the letters and what they decide they want to do.
It's real important, and if I was involved and if anyone cared what I thought, I think it's important to understand that it's really easy, politically speaking, to say we're in favor of legalization, tax, and regulate.
Yeah.
It's really easy to say that and not even know how we got here, not know who's been trampled on to get here, how there's a lot of victims that still exist and things need to be fixed.
Rights need to be, wrongs need to be righted.
And this party in particular wants to lead in this area, but they have a terrible history.
Yeah.
They're the sponsor of the crime
Really
bill.
bad.
All of the anger and hostility
Yeah,
that's justified
look at Joe Biden.
arises out of the, some
Smoking
bad
Joe
policies
Biden.
that,
And
they need to be thought about. And I'm saying this is, and this resistance seems to be what could have been the name of the show. The new boss, just like the old boss. What am I saying? Or Steve, what is it? What's the name of the show?
Same shit, different day.
Same shit, different day.
Same shit.
You know what I mean? Like this
different day.
is just like the crime bill stuff. I mean, it's not the action to lock people up and but it's certainly like they're to remove their they're still felons. They're still can't get jobs.
Yeah, I mean, some of the concerns that people, say about cannabis, I understand those because that's the way I grew up. Like, I mean, I grew very fearful of cannabis. I started it just to prove to my dad and my doctor that it's not going to work, and they'll allow me to get a second brain surgery. So, I mean, there's still a lot that I'm learning about, like, how the cannabis became like that and just how it was used before as a medicine and how right now it's basically, like the past few years, it's reemerged as a medicine, but it has all this stigma tied to it and all the arrests and people's lives ruined for something that should have never been illegal in the first place.
Right.
So, I mean, that's and I think that's why I became involved, is because, okay, like this could have helped my epilepsy and changed my life a long time ago, but it was so stigmatized
Right.
that it was scarier than being in brain surgery.
Very glad you're the vice chair of this caucus.
Absolutely.
Thank you. Thank you.
Great
And
person to be
for
on
whoever
here, Zahra.
hasn't, please follow the page and join the group. And then I did start a new personality page today called Accidental Activist, if you guys can follow that as well.
All right.
All right.
Sounds good. Thank you so much for coming on, Zahra. This was great.
Thank you guys for having me. It was nice to see you all.
Good
Good to
seeing
see
you.
you.
Thank you.
Take
Thank you,
care.
Zahra, for your contributions.
All right. We got to go to a break.
Take a break.
Got to go to a break.
Rejuvenate.
Jimmy the Peppa says break, Mike.
Break time.
All right, we'll be right back. Thanks for paying attention. Got a lot more fun to have.
Yes, we do.
Boom.
Next.
The Planet Green Trees Show.
Join the Michigan Medical Marijuana Association today. MichiganMedicalMarijuana.org. The MMMA is focused on the well-being and safety of medical marijuana patients. The MMMA site provides the most comprehensive and up-to-date news on legal issues, politics, research, cultivation, as well as the various strange products and methods of cannabis use. Come join the discussion with the most knowledgeable and passionate advocates in Michigan today. MichiganMedicalMarijuana.org.
I am Earl from G3 Cannabis Therapy Network, and you are watching Planet Green Trees, the original and #1 podcast in Michigan for all things cannabis and legal news.
Now's the time to pull it out.
Okay, so our next guest, our next speaker is Anquinette Sarfo. Everybody knows her as Q, of course. Many of us welcomed her into our homes for many years. She was the Channel 2 Fox News newscaster in the morning. I watched her for years. I felt like she was a friend before I even knew her. Following her MS diagnosis, she's led a very public campaign advocating for the use of medical marijuana in the treatment of MS. And she's a tireless leader, and she's one of the people that we can really thank for the passage of Prop 1. So here we go, my friend Q. Unmute your mic, Q.
Okay, here we go. Is that better? Take 2? All right, perfect. Thank you, everybody. Happy Digital Hash Bash, everybody, and thank you for joining the party from home. Today, while we celebrate legalization and take a puff of appreciation for the men and women who spent the last 50 years getting us to this moment, we must recognize that their work and our work is far from finished. A few months ago, I had a multiple sclerosis relapse, and I passed out and possibly had a seizure. I want to thank the Farmington Hills Fire Department and the EMS workers who helped me that day. My doctor later prescribed me a medication, one that costs $1,200 a month, and that is with insurance. So guess what? That prescription is still at the pharmacy. But what my doctor didn't tell me is that some patients who are having issues such as mine were seeing results with cannabis, which would cost me about $100 a month if I went with an option like this, which is full extract cannabis oil. He couldn't tell me that even if that was too expensive, I could just grow it myself, like this. This is Michigan-grown hemp, and I can make the extract myself. My doctor can't give me and patients like me all of their options. Cannabis education is still being censored in the medical community. We must end this, and we really have to put the medical back in medical marijuana. I treat my mother's diabetes and arthritis with cannabis, and it is working. Yet she and so many patients like her, elderly patients, are terrified to tell their doctors. How is this healthcare? It's not. And we can't stop with cannabis. Legalization actually starts with cannabis. This magic mushroom also grows naturally. Cultures have used them safely for centuries. Researchers have been studying them for conditions like depression, Alzheimer's disease, and addiction for decades. But they remain illegal. Why? It is time for us to decriminalize nature. DNA2.org is working on that, so please, please consider joining and supporting their efforts. And finally, let's not forget that people are still in jail and in prison for nonviolent marijuana incidents, and those who are released live in the shadow of records that should have been expunged by now. Michigan lost a champion in the expungement fight with the death of Representative Isaac Robinson last month from coronavirus. We have to fill the void that he left and finally get expungement law passed in Michigan and across the country. So hey, let's celebrate today and let's get back at it tomorrow. You can always find me on social media at Channel Q. And I'm really looking forward to letting you guys know about something I'm unveiling on 4/20. So I hope to see you then. And until then, let me grab my puff. Puff, puff, don't pass. Stay safe by staying at home. And I'll see you soon. Back to you guys, the Hash Bash crew. And thank you so much for doing this. This is fun. And the parking is so much better.
Oh, that's so awesome, Q. Thank you.
I wish there was thunderous applause. You deserve it.
Yes.
Oh, thank you.
Hey, Rick, why don't you tee up our next speaker?
Next year this will be 10 times as big. Next thing, if you got a joint, now's the time to pull it out.
Bill Schuette led the charge against medical marijuana, and even after the will of the voters was decided and the support was enormous, he still continued to fight against the will of the voters, keeping patients from the medicine that they need. So I think it's important that we all speak up on what we think about this initiative. But when the voters have their say, their will must stand.
Here's Michael Komorn with more.
Hey everyone, it's Amanda here with PGT News, sponsored by Komorn Law. We're outside of the Washtenaw County Jail right now, where we've got a group of protesters gathering the brutal attack and arrest of the Grady L. family, particularly Shatina. And we're here to ask some questions as to what brings people to this location today and what they'd like to communicate to everyone.
My name is Tony Brown. Can you hear me okay? My name is Tony Brown. I'm an Ann Arbor resident.
And so what brings you here today?
Well, what brings me here today is a lot of things. I'm here for social justice. But the main thing I'm here is to let the people of Ann Arbor and Washtenaw community know it's not about color. You know, this is just another ploy in the system to divide us. But first, we don't know all the facts on this case. So we need to stand together and demand the facts. What are the true facts, okay? Why is a woman being beaten down in her front yard? Is she defending herself? We don't know. So that's one reason I'm here. I want to know the facts. I'm tired of governments and cities running people over. That's another reason. It's time to stand up. I'm here for my people as a voice. I'm also here to tell people, and any voice that will listen, July 7th, 2020 is Blackout 2020. Do your homework. The hashtag is Blackout 2020. We're not going to spend any money. We're not going to use any electricity. We're going to try to stay off social media. We're going to try to live self-sufficient without spending a dime into the system, without putting a dime into the system. Just back in the 60s, when we didn't ride their buses, we want to have the same impact on one day, just to test the system, to let them know we're here. Because we work. We're hard-working taxpayers, American citizens, just like everybody else. And we don't deserve to be beaten, and we deserve transparency in government at all levels.
Hey folks, I'm here with Trammell, and we're at the Washtenaw County Jail where we have a group of folks that are protesting. And Trammell, what brings you here today?
For support. Definitely the injustice within the justice system and the way everybody's lives matters to me. And it shouldn't just be, no matter what the reason is, everyone should be treated fairly and equal. This is supposed to be the land of the free, so we should have the opportunity to express ourselves and be who we are without being put into a label or, you know, in that type of way. It's just, I'm just here for support, love, and stand our ground. Like, we need that in the fight for our rights.
Absolutely, thank you. And are you a resident of Ypsilanti?
Yes, my whole life. Yes, so a resident of Washtenaw County, been here 30 years. My whole family been here their whole life. So yes, we have been a resident for many years.
So let me ask you this: in your experience as being a resident, what do you notice what is a typical interaction with a police officer?
Oh, great question. Where do I start? How much time do you have?
You got as much time as you
want. Equal balance, definitely with the citizens of African American descent and the officers. Definitely with Pittsfield Township, with Ypsilanti Township, now it's Washtenaw Township. Like, I think a lot of these officers needs to have a psych evaluation before they become an officer, before they get their badge, because a lot of them comes from military backgrounds, army backgrounds, and racist backgrounds where that they shouldn't even be on that force or on the force to be doing their job that they're doing. And it makes it hard for people, the citizens, and make them uncomfortable because they can't live their lives, everyday lives, regardless of their background, whatever the case may be or whatever they're doing, but it still should be a protocol where justice is met at a certain level.
Folks, this is Amanda from PGT TV reporting from the Washtenaw County Jail here in Ypsilanti, Ann Arbor, Michigan. And as you can see, we have a great group of people, large group of people gathered here protesting the police and the lack of interaction with people in a positive way. And quite frankly, people are tired of it. And most recently, we had a situation in Ypsilanti Township where Mr. and Mrs. Grady L. were arrested and brutalized. And this is sparking some of the controversy today. Back to you, Michael.
And now back to more Planet Green Trees.
All right, I guess we're back.
We are back.
We are back.
We've relaunched.
We're live, too.
We are back.
We're live.
Thank you for staying with us. Jim, why don't you tell us what we're doing next? Because
Well, I think next we have Dr. Detroit on.
Excellent. Let's
Yep.
Dr.
Dr. Detroit. That's a Devo song.
Sure do.
As I started earlier, many know him as
Dan Aykroyd.
Dr. Detroit. He's also a professor at University of Detroit Mercy and longtime cannabis activist both here in the Midwest region and the West Coast as well. I know his accolades go well beyond my minor introduction here, but
I also have a card from Dr. Whitty at home. It says futurist, so I wouldn't mind mentioning what that's all about.
All right.
If we have time for
Without
it.
further ado, futurist Michael, Professor Dr. Detroit Whitty.
All right.
I'm delighted to be here and celebrate our progress. And I'm hopeful everybody spread the word about voting in the primary and paying attention to getting Karen McDonald elected as prosecutor in Oakland County. And Michael Komorn just did a nice fundraiser for her. And go to him and get into that campaign. I think we got a way to pull this old prosecutor out of office. And then there's another big race in the fall. Maybe we can even surprise people and defeat Bouchard. We've got a friend of ours running against him, Vince Gregory, out of, I guess, Southfield, and has been a state senator and a state representative and actually a sheriff in Wayne County. So he's Bouchard's opponent in the fall. Just getting people to, push hard and engage locally as much as they can. Try to look ahead. Changing Lansing, picking up 4 House seats would give the Democrats control of 1/2 of the legislature. So those races are worth watching. Down ticket, a state Supreme Court race, getting our Congress people into our causes more deeply so that they can negotiate with Biden. I want Andy Levin to go to sit down with Joe Biden and say, Mike Whitty told me I should talk to you about this, and we want you to convert and come out for legalization before November. I don't see why we can't push with Holder helping us and the Bernie-crats having some relationship with Biden, to bring ideas to him. It's in his interest to support us, and it's in our interest to have somebody at least we can sit at the table with and negotiate with in his first and perhaps last term. And so maybe Kamala Harris is the vice president. She's even easier and closer and closest to our position. So I'm somewhat optimistic and willing to stick my neck out in this crowd for Biden if it requires that. But I also am supporting Rashida Tlaib in her contested primary against a foe of legalization. And so we're doing a fundraiser July 19th. It should be live in the Woodbridge neighborhood near Wayne. Please put the date down, July 19th. We hope it'll be live, not virtual. And any friends you have in the 13th Congressional, they should get out and vote in that primary for Rashida Tlaib. And Zahra is 100% right. We're trying to revise at the last minute the Cannabis Caucus to get on the ground in the primary and the fall election, so we all have a seat at the table for years to come as long as we live. I think we have, something good going on. I really, all the way across our intersectionality, so that we're sure we're in with the prison reform and all that group like Michigan Liberation, everybody who's doing ending cash bail, all the Black Lives Matter efforts. Remember, we campaigned on Prop 1, end the racist drug war. That was my slogan. And that's the heart of the book, the new Jim Crow, Michelle Alexander's path-breaking book on mass incarceration. We should be part of these neighboring cousin coalitions deeper, and we should work inside all the parties. So we need Greg Schmidt and Tim Beck to convert the Republican Party, we got to welcome in people locally. Get involved. Write a check for $25. Go to a meeting. Do some phone banking.
Michelle Alexander's got a good film on Netflix right now called 13th, by the way. It's fantastic if anybody hasn't seen it yet.
What's it
Powerful.
13th.
Mike Whitty, I admire your optimism. I would agree with you, and I feel like you as a professor can look at this from a macro perspective of the momentum, the progress, and the general sense. We're much... I was complaining a lot to Zahra. I'm going to resist because I think that you're thinking of it in a grander scheme of things. But there's some disappointment. I think that there's still some social justice issues that haven't been addressed, and certainly some things that could have, should have, would have been done at this point. I did have, I want to address some of the candidates. I did have Karen McDonald on our podcast here. She was very nice to come out. We talked about that. And we had to postpone the fundraiser. I think we're trying to do it so it can be live. So I hope to get to see you in person. I think we're trying. It's very difficult for a lot of these candidates, to campaign via Zoom. But it was interesting. Did you see this what could be groundbreaking an event that, in light of the momentum and spotlight that the Black Lives Matter protest and racial disparities protested, that Jessica Cooper was called out for not prosecuting the beating to death of a man in the Northland Mall. Did you see some of that stuff?
Yeah. Oh my God.
Oh,
it's bad.
It is bad.
Mike, did you see that?
What was that?
I was saying the Jessica Cooper, Karen McDonald's opponent, was called out from an event that happened some 7-10 years ago, where a man was beaten to death in the Northland Mall for shoplifting or something like that, and they killed him. And her response was,
I saw that, right.
"We didn't think we could prosecute him." I mean, if there was no better time. I mean, and she remains kind of quiet. She doesn't seem to be very much in the public discourse where you hear her speaking a lot. But maybe that's her tactic. But she's not represented anything that she was supposed to. She, this is not new news. Other lawyers will tell you they got bamboozled by her. They believed her to be somebody that she was not, and she was not the same kind of prosecutor she was a judge. Is the way it goes. And
just out of curiosity, I've heard Karen several times. We had her to our Birmingham Bloomfield Dems. We do support her. Everybody in the party I talk to is totally over with Karen McDonald. So if the party core is the primary core, we're going to topple Cooper. I'm hopeful I'm right. Is that your sense of any polling that she's had, or your sense of it?
I have no feelers on that. I listen. Another lawyer friend of mine wanted me to get involved. We spoke to her. She's nice. I like everything she says. But listen, Michael, it's difficult these days because even though it's not difficult for you or me to speak of these things and have information and be able to vet it and whatnot. But the commitment of some within the party, etc. They're not really fully in. Let's be honest. They got their toenail in. They haven't committed. They still got a towel on, in a robe. They're not jumping in, and they're still dancing around it a little bit. And you're right. You're right. All that is taking place right now, all the protests, is because of racial policies that resulted in disproportionate jailing of individuals that are of a lesser part of the population, unequivocally. Oakland County leads the way on that statistic, by the way. And this is we know why this happened. Nixon in '68, and this is the reason why they made marijuana legal. It was all connected. It's all connected. That war that's taking place. The connection is easy. It doesn't take a lot. And if you're in favor of legalization and understand why it was illegal, why it became illegal. It wasn't because it was dangerous. It's because Nixon couldn't put you in jail because you were black, and he couldn't put you in jail because you're a war protester. So he wanted to put you in jail for the cannabis that you may have smoked. And
Let me recommend a wonderful Netflix movie called The Grass is Greener. And it takes the black jazz musicians of the 20s using some kind of reefer and putting it in the lyrics of some of their great jazz songs, all the way up to hip hop. And it's done by some kind of hip hop guy with a political head on his shoulders. And it takes the trace of the black community through all that music, and it takes the cannabis and the black and the jazz and hip hop thing all the way through. It's very watchable, and all of us old timers, it's a rich add-on to all that we've already absorbed or experienced. It's called The Grass is Greener, and it's on Netflix. It's a documentary, but it's because it uses music, it's very entertaining and easy to take. It's easy to bring people to press.
But the phenomena that we're living in right now, and I think that the war on cannabis, when you move into the areas in the state that are not populated with African Americans, etc., there's still a war on cannabis and war on humans.
Absolutely.
It's economic, and there's a class, it's almost class. So you still have the same impact of that, and they have the same, they have similar arguments of the disproportional entry of them into the system because of economic status, whatnot. But I don't know, there's, I look at it like this. I mean, I take a very critical position of the police, and that they have been able to get away with this without any accountability. And the only answer is to end governmental qualified immunity or qualified immunity that allows officers to be free from civil lawsuits. If they were liable, then the hiring of the individuals, the policy, the training would all be more significant if they were on the hook. But I've done...
Michael, we've been talking about qualified immunity for the last 3-4 weeks. Where have you been?
Funny, Alan. Alan, it's funny. Listen,
funny.
So, but
was that in your happy hour, Alan?
We're talking politics now. Mike, Whitty, speak freely on the question of how...
Calm down.
With the poo-poo platter, no doubt.
How, what's your... Let's get ratings from you. Let's get ratings on you on these topics. The cannabis policy in Michigan, okay? Candidate number 1. Feel free to... Candidate number 1, Dana Nessel, Attorney General. Scale of 1 to 10, how has she been on cannabis since being elected?
Disappointed. I'm a little mystified. I'm sure one of you folks are closer to how she's been either swamped with 30 issues in that job, or that they're still playing cat and mouse with cannabis, even though we sat there in Matt Abel's office with them, closer than 6 feet.
I know
they
what it
seemed
is.
fine campaigning for our vote.
Jim,
I was at Cobo.
Yeah.
It was an amazing moment.
I was there too. I was there too, Mike, and it's very disappointing. And sometimes those high in office find it very difficult to just do the right thing.
No,
It's just
Steve. You know what?
Really
I think
hard
I figured it out.
Yes,
she can't find a pen.
Oh.
Ooh,
what was that again?
That will
Can't find a pen.
That could do it, Jim.
Yeah.
What will do it?
She can't find it. You get spending him.
Can't find a pen.
What does that mean?
Because we're saying it can all be changed with the stroke of a pen.
Oh.
Stroke of a pen. And all these
she
people
must
that
not be able to
are
find
locked
a
up,
pen.
these people that are members of people's families that are sitting in jail right now.
The comments we're making is the idea that there hasn't been expungements, or that some executive order, when we're living in the era of executive orders, couldn't be accomplished. If she's declaring, cannabis as an essential business, you can certainly go as far. That'd be the governor's call. I don't like the position.
Yes, it would be a good time for her to do it like that. Is it Governor of Nevada who did the same?
Yeah.
I think somebody.
Illinois, the governor of Illinois did the same thing, wiped out a bunch of.
Because it's the right thing to do.
For a governor, if our Constitution allows it, I think she could do it without any political damage, and it would be a couple days news, and they'd be on to the next big thing.
Yep.
So there's that. So we were talking about your disappointment with the general, and on the issue of expungement. I mean, you probably heard her talk about it. She's, listen. This is really the question I want to ask you. You're a scientist as it comes to politics. I know that's one of the classes that you teach. Do we have a right to be disappointed with them? In other words, isn't the fundamental basis of politics to settle, to meet opponents? In other words, if we want, we want 100, and she says she's going to give us 100, and we get 35% because she's got to get along with all the bureaucrats that are in that office already.
And Ken Stucker.
Didn't we win?
Well,
I'm saying, doesn't politics breed that?
Well, here, Rick Michaels is known to our Rick here and Jamie, they've both met him more than once. We have someone like, we want more from Nessel than we're getting, and we want better decisions. We want a package. We have 5 or 10 items, maybe starting with Rick for who do we approach next, and then try through persuasion and a positive and friendly approach, and see if the right circle of people can usher us into some place where that'll be listened and taken care of and put on the to-do list. That's worth the exercise. No, I think both Jamie and Rick are perfect folks to figure out how to do that and when to do that and on what issues.
Would you say?
Better.
Would you say that you're not prepared?
Yes, we are perfect folks.
I love to think of myself as a perfect folk. I will say this, though. Michael mentioned earlier something very valid to talk about at this point, which is the fact the governor and the attorney general already selected their advisory committees. We are superfluous to that discussion base. If they need advice on the cannabis industry, that's where they're going. So I like Mike's angle with, get somebody who's one step away from that office and see if we can't get like a private meeting.
And I want to take the conversation one step deeper. Rick was at the hearings too back in last October. I went and testified on behalf of the expungement bills that were going to make it a lot easier for people to get expungements on a lot of things. Should be all things really, but a lot of things. They were pretty decent bills, and her office was against them for some reason. I had a lot of groups that day thank me for my testimony that day. I must have done pretty good. But a lot of groups representing, people who have been seriously affected by just our over-prisoning of people over the past 30, 40 years or so.
And Steve, you did a great job that day, and I give you credit every time I talk about that presentation. The thing that bothers me the most is that the guy that authored the bill for cannabis expungements didn't even vote for Prop 1. He said so in that meeting. He said he didn't vote for Prop 1, but his people seemed to like it, so he thought he'd put something together. And his bill reads like something somebody just put together. It doesn't have any thought. It's not all-encompassing. It's not nearly the depth of what we're looking for.
It's misleading, actually.
It really is. The title itself, it doesn't do anything that the title actually claims it does. Senator Irwin has a much better bill to go forward. So expungement can proceed at a different level.
That doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, but I mean, Steve, you were right. That was a wonderful presentation, but that was a frustrating day.
It was, and then I just was frustrated that when I heard that Attorney General's office was against it, and I didn't even know why. I just was pissed that it was, because it seemed like they were good bills to make things easier.
Do you
so
think
I
Frank
didn't
Kelly
understand.
would have been against those bills?
This is Mike.
No, he would not.
Mike Whitty. Mike Whitty. This goes back to the question I was kind of asking Rick. Rick, Jamie, feel free to jump in as well. When we analyze successes of a politician, what is the measurement that we should be using? And I'm just saying, like, I'm letting him off the hook. If she promises you 100% and you believe her and you get 25%, should you be satisfied? I mean, because her president, their position that they took, it wasn't her and her brain alone. She's got a group of people that she's relying on that said, this is the position we're going to take. She said, okay, let me hear about it. She said, okay, go with it. And these are the reasons why. And they told her. She didn't tell them. She didn't say, I want this and this. She's reacting to it. That is, I think, more of the problem. And she's got to capitulate to get along with all the bureaucrats in her office. There are people there that saluted Schuette, and they salute her. And they are bureaucrats. And she's got to get along with them. You know what I mean?
Pretty conservative, probably socially conservative. Well, let me put it this way. All of us in this discussion, we probably are more effective finding a gentle way, since we know a little bit of the pathways in the Democratic Party, and Dana Nessel and her, we all supported her. Michael and I raised funds for her and all the good stuff. I think maybe I feel ready to sign up for any one of you who lead me to help talk more benefit from her, more help from her, know what things she can expedite and where her resistance is rigid, and at least could grasp the difference between the two. We might make significant progress on some things that right now we're just not close enough to pull the low-hanging fruit down. So I'm a little optimistic, but probably we're a lot better working, like you say, within the Democratic Party and the private social who knows who networking process. I think we might get more bang for the buck doing that than all the other heroics and 1,000 other choices we could be making. So I agree. I don't understand why she didn't try to incorporate more of this creative bunch of people in a statewide network. She gets out and still campaigns and shows up, and she endorsed Karen McDonald against Jessica Cooper. So she's got her hand in the party politics and mainstream things. So, and even out of the mainstream, the primary, that's controversial for her to step into a Democratic primary for a prosecutor in particular.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I'm all for the people that promised us and seem to have underperformed. I think we might get more that way. That's what the hard right does to the corporate and centrist Republicans. They jump on them and they push them around a little bit, force them to pay up.
True. Do you think there's someone in the Democratic Party that will run against her next time around? If they're going to run somebody, if she can't get the cannabis vote,
Michael Komorn.
Good question.
Say the cannabis vote's pissed at her, and the Cannabis Caucus like, forget it. We've been lied to. You did nothing. You objected when Steve laid down some great tracks in front of the committee, and Rick's mustache looked superb that day. I mean,
superb.
How could that not be a win? You know, and we want a new candidate who's going to be pro-cannabis. You know, all the LGBT winning, right?
Winning.
You're
over and over
you're
again.
gonna get sick of winning.
Over and over again.
That's all we do is win.
All she does is win. They've been winning. But
Keeping
what about
promises.
Cannabis is not on the agenda, and that may have been her play. She may have had to get all of that. She may have had to concede on some of that.
She needs to probably start smoking weed to relax a little.
I would recommend it.
We got to get over to that place on 6 Mile or something, right? Is that where she needs to hang out? I know.
Sorry to hear, Michael. I'm sorry to hear that her deficiencies are greater than they've even appeared to me, and I've sensed them as disappointing. The best I can do is talk to Rick Michaels. I see him through the Michigan Liberation Group. It's, wanting to change the Oakland County prosecutor and the sheriff and the priorities of the county. Which is another ally group that we try to have them appreciate who we are and what we add to their coalition. We're still second-class citizens sometimes, even among liberals.
The down ticket races are really the important thing. Remember that Dana Nessel barely won her election. It was 1 percentage point. It was by the skin of her teeth, and we were. It's gross to say. We were the skin of the teeth. The fact is, we've proven that our support can make or break a Democratic candidate versus a Republican candidate, and also a primary candidate, Democratic, versus a Democratic primary challenger we don't favor. So at this point, anyone in Michigan that wants Democratic support in the 2020 election, an election guaranteed to be extremely divisive, it would only make sense for a down ticket for them to embrace cannabis in a more real way. Now, perhaps they're busy and they'll get to it, or perhaps closer to the election they'll drop some great news for us, which will keep the enthusiasm level up when we go to the ballot box, whatever the program is. But I would like to see some progress, and I would like to see it in 2020. I don't want to wait till 2021 or 2022.
Maybe Joe Biden will come around too and think that cannabis isn't dangerous, and maybe he'll apologize.
Well,
maybe
he'll apologize. Campaign right now.
Maybe he'll apologize, which he's not and refused to, about his involvement in the crime bill that's resulted in much of the antagonism and protest that's taking place. That's all we want. Just admit that. He has apologized in the past, and unlike the other candidates,
I haven't seen it.
He has said the right things at the right moments, or tried to. At least he knows to try to do that, where others don't.
Which time when he said shoot him in the leg?
That was not the right thing to say.
Or he's got a couple other good ones in there as well.
I'm saying, but Mike Whitty, he's got to come around on that. I mean, Trump could say, let's legalize marijuana. It's over. I don't know that.
All over. Done.
What do you say, Mike Whitty? What is
Stroke of a pen.
Do you think he's an easy?
I think he has.
First of all, didn't people? I mean, isn't there the same thing going on? Aren't we all living in a bubble, thinking that Joe Biden has the same enthusiasm as Bernie? Aren't we living in a bubble that even though the Bernie did not get all that excitement in the young voter?
Let me give you my answer.
Yes.
Here's my answer. I was a Bernie delegate in 2016 to Philadelphia. I voted for Bernie in the Michigan primary 2 or 3 months back. I'm still with what Bernie has done, recognizing the danger of friendly fascism and Trump and the GOP being hijacked by the religious right and the hate forces have captured the heart of the GOP. It's going to be fixed in the future, but right now people have to unite to block the worst possible set of options in the federal courts about search and seizure and stops and forfeiture and stuff like that. The right-wing judges that Trump's already loaded the court with, federal court is a killer, Supreme Court is bad, and it'll get worse if somebody dies or if Trump, by some fluke, can stop people from voting, and mess up the post office and block absentee voting and create a slim win through suppressing the vote in a variety of ways and using national crisis powers. There's a lot of ways you depress the vote just a little bit in a close election, a close state, in these 5 or 7 swing states, there goes the electoral college. So, we have a place in this election. We have more opportunity and a bigger window probably than we're ever going to see again on so many fronts. You can talk about race or economics or the world or humanity or your own health. Is Trump trying to kill you if you're over 50 because they don't give a damn about the old people? They have no respect for Aretha Franklin's message about RESPCT, that kind of stuff.
50?
I'm worried for it, but I think it'll turn out okay.
50 is old now? Since when? Just kidding.
50's the new 20.
50.
I think it's the new 20.
What?
Yeah.
I feel as good as I ever have, Jim. Better living through cannabis, I say.
Yes,
come on.
absolutely.
Thank you, Michael, for introducing me to this lifestyle.
Dr. Detroit.
Really weed.
What a great interview.
We gotta go to break.
I see Jim doing the whale. Mike Whitty, thanks very much for your interview on Planet Green Trees. What a great segment, eh, Michael?
It was great.
Absolutely.
Great segment.
Stay
And
healthy
about being
happy.
and about
Stay
being
healthy and
50.
happy.
It only took you 50 years to get to 50, but it'll take you only 10 to get to 60.
Yeah.
That's it.
It's good perspective, Alan.
There you go, Alan.
Way to
It's a
cheer
good way to
everybody
look
up.
at things.
Yeah, I think we're going to need to definitely recuperate during break after that.
All right, we're going to go to a break.
Wait, I have one question. Wait, I remembered. Mike Whitty, shouldn't some of the current activism be about facilitating the mail-in ballot opportunities? I mean, if everyone has one of those and can vote with the ease of mailing, is that not
voting?
Absolutely. Is that not an opportunity? Because right, everyone has a choice to cross it off, mail it in. Now they'll get the ballot and they can mail. They don't have to go stand in line. Is that a is that a thing that I mean? Obviously, it's been divided that the one party doesn't want it.
Everybody's been mailed the application, and they should encourage people who also receive that mail to fill it out and send it right back now. Don't let it sit and get lost somewhere.
Yep, I already did mine.
Vote out early is important because I worry about what Trump can do to defund the post office and put one of his operatives in charge of it and block the post office has to deliver these ballots to the county clerks. And there are cases in Wisconsin and in Detroit in the last election, 2016, where the postal delays got the ballot to the clerk after the election. It couldn't be counted. Invalidated a lot of late absentee ballots by the postal delays and understaffing, underfunding, and now a way to endanger turnout efforts. So the election will be won by turnout. Are we stronger and more fervent than the far right? And it's kind of more of a contest than it should be.
Trump has replaced all the leadership in the post office with his personal donors. Take a look at CNN, and you can see a recent report detailing exactly that.
All right. On that
God
note,
bless.
we got to go to break.
All right,
and then we
sounds
got to
good.
come back to Steve.
There's a party at Dr. Bob's with a reggae band this Friday, the 19th, for solstice.
All right, did you hear that? Party, Dr. Bob.
Party, Dr. Bob.
Salsa.
This Friday the 19th, 8 p.m., a reggae band and a rainbow drum circle, an outdoor fire pit. It's all outside for distance and masking, and you can enjoy the music. Will be played outdoors, and there's tailgate parties in their super parking lot there on the corner, too.
Awesome.
Very important question. Is it bring your own drum, or will there be a drum for you in the circle?
I would say bring any drum or even a plastic pail and 2 drumsticks.
Excellent.
Or clavies, or shakarés, or anything you got in the house.
How about a tambourine?
Yeah, tambourines are permitted.
All right.
I could just pound on my head.
Make a horse sound.
I could just pound on my head. I get a nice hollow sound there.
I was trying to make a joke about
hands,
bring
too.
your own drum. Okay. Michael Whitty, thank you. Dr. Detroit.
Thank you, guys.
Thriving,
Bye-bye.
thriving.
Thank
Look
you,
at that,
Dr.
man.
Detroit.
Good stuff.
Boom.
All right, let's take a break. We'll be right back with some more
With
Planet
Steve's.
Green Trees. And
We got David.
There we go. Okay.
Planet Green Trees Show.
Join the Michigan Medical Marijuana Association today. MichiganMedicalMarijuana.org. The MMMA is focused on the well-being and safety of medical marijuana patients. The MMMA site provides the most comprehensive and up-to-date news on legal issues, politics, research, cultivation, as well as the various strange products and methods of cannabis use. Come join the discussion with the most knowledgeable and passionate advocates in Michigan today. MichiganMedicalMarijuana.org.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the 2020 Digital Hash Bash broadcast, hosted by Jamie Lowell. Jamie, you're out there, aren't you?
I'm here, hosted by all of us. I'm not taking the credit for sure.
Nope. A whole big gang of us. I'd like to introduce our next guest speaker here. BDT Smoke Shop opened in 1973. They're the #1 head shop in the Southeast Michigan for more than a dozen years. This gentleman is the face of BDT Smoke Shop, but he's so much more, and I hope he gets a chance to explain that. Let me introduce Mr. Curtis Gore.
I hear a bit of an echo.
Hey, Curtis.
My intro was so good, he didn't feel the need to stay around to say anything. Awesome!
Well, unfortunately, I don't know if you can hear me or not.
Yes, we can, Curtis. Yay! Thank you.
Oh, boy. Poor internet
There he
connection,
is.
I think.
All right.
Just as we thought things were going well. I
Doing
heard
great.
you in
We
the
can see you
background.
and hear-
I could hear the intro.
We can hear you and see you. Keep going.
Okay, wonderful. Well, it's a pleasure to be on our first ever virtual Hash Bash over Skype. This has been fantastic. I think it's time to have a little fun. Can you still see me?
Mm-hmm. So there you go.
We got something big going on in the background here. Kind of chilling things out at the Hazel Park BDTs. Well, it's obviously been a tough time for all of us, but we're going to do our best getting through.
You know, Curtis, it's difficult to know what is an essential service and what isn't. How's BDTs doing with this whole situation? Are you an essential service? Are you able to service customers?
No, we are, all our stores are shut down right now. But fortunately, with our gas and chemical company, Bumblebee Gas and Extraction, we've been actually servicing the community by providing isopropyl alcohol and non-denatured alcohol and actually turning that into a sanitizer. And we're still.
Curtis, we may have lost you. You notice Curtis's background, those of us who can still see him on freeze frame. He's at the Marijuana Museum, which is existing in Hazel Park. Jamie Lowell's been there before. That happens to be a great rack of magazines and other memorabilia, not just from Cheech and Chong, but other remnants of the era. It's quite an impressive place, Jamie.
Yeah, we did a Jazz Cabbage Cafe broadcast from there.
Sure did.
Helped to show it off and had a really great lineup of people there participating.
Yeah. That hat he was wearing itself deserves a story. That was pretty awesome. And a fog machine for the Hash Bash show? That's great.
Figure out
by cattle prod.
by cannabis. You know, because first of all, like the idea that they were shutting all this shit down back then, I was like, they can't. It's crazy. What the fuck? Can't even. And then like 3 months in, I'm like, they can't open this shit back up. It's too crazy. No way they open it.
We were fighting about it all week.
Every single case that I've had, if whatever it is, they've all been, just come back. You
mosey on in.
Just come back later. Never. No big deal.
Court.
And every time they tried to force me to do something on Zoom, I'm like, I'm not doing it. They're like, okay, come back later. They don't give it. So all of a sudden, ironically, David, you would appreciate that the case is on appeal from the trial court, which is the district court, in the circuit court, and we had our appeal hearing, and we got a notice for that, and at the same time, a new date to show up in the district court, as if they could read the mind of the appellate court before we even got there. You know, like it's kind of like you'd think they'd wait until the ruling comes out before they would. None of that. But
you think they got the inside track?
So right. So the point is that it wasn't just that I was going back for one court date. I was going back for the appeal of this case, and then Monday, and then I have another case on Tuesday, and it's 3.5 hours away. It makes no sense. So here you go. So I walk in to the court, and for those that are keeping track at home, there is a protocol developed by the Michigan Supreme Court, this 4-phase back to normal policy.
Boom.
And it's
what phase are you in?
Am I in?
What phase are the courts in?
So that's a good question. So as we walk in, they have a man sitting.
Yeah.
They're required to have a mask.
Yeah.
You have to socially distance, although none of that took place.
Oh.
He takes your temperature, asks you some questions, which are, have you been traveling? Have you been around anyone with COVID? Do you feel sick? Blah, 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 blah.
Yeah.
So he seemed like he was a police officer. Felt comfortable telling him all that information.
Oh, you did?
No, not at all.
Did you feel safer?
And then I said to him, are you guys aware of the 4-pronged project outroll? I go, what phase are you in? He goes, 3, maybe 2 or 3.
2 or 3.
And I was like, okay. So then I go to the next phase, which of course was the sheriff.
Was it 2 or 3?
He mumbled something. I go, what was my temperature? I go, what was my temperature? He's like, it's on the sheet. I was like, 97.9. What's average? Is that what it is?
Yeah, it's roughly average.
Compared to what? Compared to what?
Yeah, I don't know.
I think 98.7 is.
Whatever. I'm just saying. That's always the thing. You know what I mean? I guess.
Low temp. You were low temp.
Radio station.
Low temp.
So I go to the next phase, which is the X-ray machine.
Oh, the X-ray phase.
So behind the X-ray.
Are they looking for COVID with the X-ray?
Behind the X-ray.
Burns out the COVID.
This is the whole point. The whole behind the X-ray machine is a sheriff who has 0 mask on. Okay.
Oh.
Now
let me
listen.
tell you, Michael
he doesn't need one. He's in front of the X-ray machine.
I witnessed this whole thing go down.
He
This
goes,
is how it goes down.
are you
So
a
this is
lawyer?
Michael.
I go, yeah. He goes, can I see your ID? So I reach and take my ID, and I show it to me. He grabs it from me. He takes it.
So game was on
and then
at this point.
does
Game
this.
on.
What's your P number? As if I smuggled in my wallet. Okay, this is what this guy says to me. Like I've never even.
missed that
Usually
part of
they'll
it.
say, "What's your P number?"
I came up and you had your dukes up at this point. By
I
the
was
time
like, "What the fuck is going on?" I go. Then I say, "Why don't you have a mask?"
Yes, this is what
I go. Why
walked
don't you
off.
have a mask on? Phase 2, phase 3. He goes, "Because I got all this plastic surrounding me." I go, "You got your hands in my wallet? What are you talking
Yeah,
about?
you got your hands.
What are you talking about?"
I think you actually said you got your hands all over my shit. I think you might have said that.
I was like, what planet are we on? This, of course, is from the group of individuals that said, we're not going to enforce the orders. We're just,
sheriffs.
it's unconstitutional. Like, how dare you ask me why I don't have a mask on? Did you get our position? We're not following these stupid Michigan laws. There's a lot of fucking shit. David, help me. Am I losing my mind? What kind of
I
crazy
witnessed
shit
the whole thing.
to unsettle me?
I love that this happened to you.
It's going to be one of the episodes in our sitcom.
Because here's the thing is, like, if you try to tell them about a law that you think is unconstitutional, they don't give a fuck, you know? With that being said, interesting first court appearance. So they're phase 2.
Wait. So I said to the judge, so I walk into the courtroom, it's just like normal. And I go, oh, so I got my mask, which is just terrible. I got a problem.
Did you have to talk with your mask on at the...
Well, I walk in, I go, oh, you don't have to have a mask on in here? It's like, no, only if you're on this side, and if you're on the bar side, you know. So I got a thing with my mask. My chin's either hanging out, and if I breathe, my glasses fog up, okay? I got to figure something out. I'm going to be a fucking mess. I can barely...
Well, I told you how to do it today.
So
Just put it under your nose.
Yeah. Well, my nose is exposed. Whatever, fine. So so they're like, yeah, when you come over here, you get to take your mask off. Meanwhile, there's like, I don't know, like there's 7 or 8 people in this store. 7 or 8 people.
You gotta
I'm
go
like
to the
9
men's
and 10. My client, the prosecutor, they're all no mask. You know, so it's like a regular fucking day. Nothing changed. So after this is all done. I say to the judge, I go, Judge, you know, this is the only court that I know that's open. You're aware of that? He's like, oh yeah, we're in phase. We just came into phase 3. We're in touch with the health department. It's not such a big deal. I'm not surprised how the other courts aren't open. I go, what about jury trials? He's like, yeah. We're not having any jury trials until August. And I said, really, the case that you just denied and granted the stay, they think we're going to trial in July. They told me, you know. Anyways, that was my day in court. Damn it, I felt like I had to share that with you. So when you have your experience where you would no longer are a virgin, is that what we're calling it?
Yes.
You will.
I'm a COVID court virgin.
Yeah.
COVID court.
Yeah. When do you get to?
Your first time.
When do you get to break her?
I don't know. All my cases that require being in court, they're adjourning. You know, so I'm.
Are they making you file a stip in order?
You got to get up to Ross Common. You got to get up to Ross Common. They don't care up there.
They're moving the court date. Like, so far, my experience is all my court dates, it's either like, are you going to be able to resolve anything? If I'm not going to be able to resolve anything, then yeah, I think I have the prosecutor file a stip in order to adjourn the hearing out, you know, because the courts they're not scheduling in-person hearings, any of the courts I deal with. I've been there where they try to schedule a Zoom preliminary examination.
No way.
You know? I just say,
no way.
I've watched,
absolutely not.
And one of the attorneys complained and said, I'm not doing, Judge, I strongly object to that. It's a violation of the 5th and 6th Amendment. And basically the judge said, well, she was like, I'm going to file a motion on it. And she was like, well, just hold off because you're getting transferred to a different judge. So let them deal with this problem, you know? But generally, I think people are doing prelims by Zoom. But the lawyer I talked to that did it, she got a dismissal. She knew it was a slam dunk winner, and her client was stuck in jail, and you couldn't do it in person. So
that's different. That's one exception. I will say I have not talked to a judge. No judge has admitted to me that they want to have Zoom situations where testimony is being taken on Zoom. They don't want to.
It's an automatic appeal.
You know why? Well, probably.
They're doing them in certain places because here's the thing: if you have a right to have your hearing in 21 days,
right?
And if you want to exercise right, they have no choice but to do it by Zoom. You know.
Yeah. Meanwhile, what's the irony is that I had to be in court at this thing. They're making you show up, and I got up Monday, and Washtenaw County zooming the whole criminal call, afternoon. Zooming and doing bench conferences and waving, doing stuff. What happened? I don't know. So
I kind of Zoom court's a weird thing. It's a weird court is such an in-person activity that we've always done in person, and you're interacting with human beings and talking to them, and doing it through this medium of Zoom. It's interesting. They can put you in a breakout room with the prosecutor, then you can go in another room and talk to your client. Although, funny story, recently an attorney went into a breakout room with his client where it got live broadcast on YouTube.
Oh my God.
Which is the worst
Horrible.
case.
Horrible.
I can
all sorts of rights being violated.
Hold on.
Where are the wiretapping charges?
There's not even a remedy at that point.
For
There's
those,
no
well, hold
remedy.
on. For those that don't know, the way the court has been able to function via Zoom without people being present in court and not being open to the public is they will have a live stream on YouTube.
Yep.
District courts, circuit courts have YouTube channels now. And they'll live stream it, but they won't record it somehow. It doesn't remain part of the public record. David, do you agree with that?
I agree. And also, if you record it, you can get it. It says do not record at the bottom.
It sure does.
Not allowed to record it. And an attorney, a Trump, Nick Thompson, took a picture and like made fun of the prosecutor.
He sure did.
You know, they tried to attempt, and they're filing a grievance against him as well. I think the grievance has more merit than the contempt. And then Jim Amberg came in and defended him just because, like, basically fuck the prosecutor for filing that. And they basically won the case. They got it moved away from Nicholson.
How? Oh, because she's prejudiced?
And then the prosecutor filed like a responsive brief that basically said,
we don't really want to hold him in contempt.
we don't want him to go to jail. We just want him to take the post down.
Yeah.
You know? Like they totally backed down once Amber got involved. But you're not supposed to tape the live streams. You're not supposed to for some reason, even though it's going out to the public live. So it's essentially like a public hearing in court where you can go there live. You can't just videotape it unless you get permission. And I've had the press involved in my Zoom courts, and they're just a blank window that's watching, you know, stealing up. Like they can use that for profit, everything that happens. Yeah. They have to file something. So
I think some of the stations have some of the recorded dockets. Why do you think they don't want to record it?
Because I think that there's a possibility people could snip it up. Like there are people who would just manipulate.
I mean, edit it? Yeah.
I have a theory.
They can edit it.
I have a really good theory. I think they don't allow it in the courtroom because the judges don't want their poor behavior and condoning certain bad law enforcement behaviors and prosecutorial behaviors, referring to defense attorneys in an open court session in derogatory terms that are very offensive, as the prosecutor chuckles with the lieutenant on the stand about the joke they just made.
Steve, who's getting assaulted?
Hey, let me ask a question. Do they allow now cellular phones in the courtroom?
Yes.
So that even if...
But my point is I think that the judges don't want their behavior on television, Jim. Well, because they know they're behaving badly a lot of times. And maybe they're not really doing the right thing. And they're being very condescending to everybody who comes before them.
There's something to be said about that. I think if people saw the way the judges operate and how unuser-friendly they are, that would be something they'd want to avoid. I think also there's a monopoly on the information if you want to take it with you, which is the court reporters or videographers or what have you. You know what I mean? There's like a formal way to do it.
Yep.
I do say, though, that because people have phones and can bring them into court, of course, they'll take them away if they see you using them, but I would think that the ability to capture that kind of stuff would be much easier these days. And
Mike, do you know Oakland County, they have cameras covering the courtroom, and I can go watch the proceedings, right? Like at any time you can go in there and you can go watch them on a video.
Wow.
You know, at Oakland County. But like, do you know, is that FOIA-able? We can get transcripts, really order the videos. Jim Amberg used to post them on his YouTube, and somehow they like took that right away. I don't know.
I don't know. Maybe we ought to try and FOIA one and see.
I think so.
They're very cautious about giving the video. In fact, I had that situation happen in St. Clair County where the judge wanted to hurry us along So instead of waiting for 3 months for the transcripts to be done, she said, well, just burn copies of the video. Took 10 seconds. We walked out of there with the video, you know, so we'd have to watch it instead of read it, kind of thing. But not all these courts. So not all these courts are even favorable video. You can't get copies. They won't let you take copies of the video, and it's not ease of access. All right, listen, we have a lawyer. So I know Steve's going to do this thing. It's 10 o'clock. David, while we have you and Alan and Jamie and Rick, who are imposter lawyers but like to throw their legal authority around, we should talk for a minute, because the story this last week is our governor signed into law the Senate bill making into law the, what was it?
718.
The pilot program, are you talking about?
It's not a pilot program anymore. Now it's law that expands statewide to the use of these saliva tests.
Doesn't it remain a pilot program, but it's just expanded statewide instead of just the 5 counties?
It's a pilot program for the whole state. It's year 2 of.
I think it had already been through that. What's that?
Senate Bill 718.
I think that it had already been
Amanda, it's also
expanded.
Public Act 87. Public Act 87, which is, the law number 2020 PA 87.
Okay.
Yep. And this is the first step to Steve's vision, where with law enforcement, and the next step they're going to take against us, because once they have these portable test machines,
here you go.
It's all over,
phase
Steve.
2 of the pilot program began. So the initial program began in November 2017 in Berrien, Delta, St. Clair, and Washtenaw counties. Those 5. Phase 2 of the program began in October of 2019. According to the letter from MSP, the House Judiciary Committee, the new legislation neither expands the program, since it was already statewide, as I said, nor testing abilities. The test can only be administered by certified DRE experts.
Which it's such a joke. What they're doing is they're building up numbers that to say that they're accurate, where like they're counting the percentage of accuracy when they guess that somebody smoked marijuana and they test positive for marijuana, right? But they don't include the fact that part of those times when they guess somebody smoked marijuana is part of the 12-step DRE process is they ask you, what did you do recently? And so if somebody admits, which they do like 70% of the time, admit what drug they took recently, then and the cop guesses right that they took that drug recently, that's counted as like the statistical accuracy of the test.
Well,
non-science supporting non-science.
Okay, let me make this point. In the original pilot program of the 5 counties, they produced a report that concluded it was inconclusive from the first go-around. They've never
but had a lot of promise.
They never had a situation. They said, we can rely on this. They said, this is what we got. It's inconclusive. Can we have some more money and try it again? Yeah. Nothing changed. Okay. In fact, when they said it was inconclusive, what really, this from their own language, it starts like this. They say, of course, in this report that in examining these kind of issues, blood is the gold standard for testing. If you're going to get something, breath doesn't work, saliva's, whatever, but blood is the standard. So we have that to go by in these situations. In order for someone to be subjected to a saliva test, it has to be given by a DRE, or someone that has gone through the training and does the 13-step process. And which I would say is not, they're given this benefit of the doubt that they have some extra kind of training in this area of detection.
About 4 hours of extra training or something.
Well, yeah, whatever. So
you gotta press the button.
So, and they have this machine with them. So they report in this first program with the concept of blood being the gold standard that there was 78 arrests for marijuana. The numbers were something like this, but the percentage of this mistake, 77 marijuana arrests, to which 70, 68, 69, something like that, were found, so like 10, 11 of that percentage was 10 or 11 of the total amount of people that had been arrested it was later found out that they had no cannabis, four candidates had no cannabis in their blood. Okay? Now, the way they spun this in the report, after saying that blood is the gold standard, is that this machine's so accurate, it was able to detect cannabis when it wasn't even in the blood. Okay? So this, so this is the kind, that's the kind of stuff that's going. Now, the interesting fact is we know that's nonsense, but
this is the equivalent to the PBT, correct? So a refusal of same is civil infraction.
Yeah, the legal advice at the end of the day is don't take the test. But I want to make this final point on the testing, which is that in order for them to make an arrest, it wouldn't be on giving the test alone. They'd have to give the test, and then they would run them through DRE. So the number of 10 out of the 77 times that they were in error, and that's not 10% error. That's it's like 18, 20. It's not a accuracy or precision. Of those times that we're finding that the machine was wrong, it also means that the DRE was wrong. You see what I'm saying? This report that they say was inconclusive makes the case that the DRE are prone to error, mistake, proven by the blood.
Yep, but like over 15% of the time.
Weren't there also issues initially?
Well,
with that?
it doesn't include, as David mentioned, in the DRE process, they will ask them.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's the problem. Is it's 10 out of 77 they were wrong, but like 30 out of the 77 somebody said I smoked weed right before I started driving.
Right.
And then like, oh, there was THC in their system. Good job. Like,
well, I've been saying it all along since legalization. If they're gonna figure it out sooner or later. If they smell it in your car, it's gonna show up in your blood. The law says you can't have any in your system. They're gonna lock you up for an easy, cheap arrest for the day and a pat on the back from their sergeant. And it's an easy arrest all day long. It's better than drunks because the marijuana guys don't fight with you. Drunks fight with you at least half the time. It's an easy, cheap arrest all day long, and these guys are going to start doing it regularly as the new war on drugs.
Michael, didn't we have a DRE expert explain to us 2-3 weeks ago that in order to be certified as an expert, they only have to be right 80% of the time?
It's a joke.
I'm serious. That's what he said. To pass their DRE exam, what they have to do is field evaluations, and with a known suspect with known substances they've evaluated, and then they have to evaluate and determine what those substances are. And if they're right 80% of the time, then they get their DRE certificate.
Of that 80%, they need to be 60%.
Well, if you take a look at those 100 tests, they had 100 tests. 77 of them said yes, which means 33% or 27% of those, or 23% of those said were incorrect. Then another 11 of those turned out not to be correct because of bloodstream issues too. So you're really looking at about a 34 or 35% fail rate. How is that acceptable? 1/3 of the tests you're giving are essentially wrong.
It's not scientific, and neither is the DRE. It's non-science supporting non-science and using that to convict people.
David,
no, but by the DRE's own standard is 80% to get a pass rate.
David
and
Alan, in the interest, listen to the situation I was arguing on appeal today for this case. So the officer that did the arrest is air raid traded but not DRE. He performed FSTs on the person and arrested her for marijuana. He admitted during his testimony that the FSTs are not related or have any correlation to marijuana impairment, yet he arrested her for marijuana impairment. Okay? He says all this. And then they don't put on this witness, but there's a DRE report back at the jail that contradicts all of his observations. Like the eyes were fine, there's no issue of convergence, she didn't smell, she fucking her voice was clear, whatever. And then the judge makes a joke to me, goes, so you're probably going to want to certify her, the DRE, as your expert.
He did say
to
that.
say, and I was like, what does he fucking say? I go, well, I mean, I said, Judge,
I didn't know if he was saying it as good or bad.
I said, I understand your point. What I would do is I'd certify an expert, and they would say this is all junk science and witchcraft. But I understand your point. I would qualify them and say you're the expert. You would disagree
prosecutor was appalled when you
with
said
what
that,
he's what
by the
the
way.
arresting officer said. I mean, it was. He also, you know, like this is I mean, this doesn't happen very much. I made into evidence the Michigan State Police report regarding per se levels, right? And in that report, it goes through how the FSTs are not indicative of marijuana, and that the solution here is to do more DRE, right? Which is different.
Makes sense.
Different. So the judge thinks that he tells well the
Why
report
not,
the report says that you have to that FST is what they have to do. I said no, Judge. There's a difference of the FST that's for alcohol.
Yeah.
There's a case on point about this. It's not in this jurisdiction.
Throw it at the
so do you know
wall
what he
and see
said?
what
So
sticks.
after all that's being said, and I think he was reading from the prosecutor's brief, he starts going through, and with the 19 neighboring jurisdictions that have per se limits of 0.5, Colorado, Arizona, Washington State, like he started reading off the other states that have per se numbers as some meaning when the Michigan State Police report says they have no meaning.
It's so weird.
Crazy.
It's like we're in Michigan, but
it was.
They want it to be Colorado. I don't understand.
What do you think? You know, he wouldn't give me a Dauber hearing, which is kind of crazy, and he also wasn't.
What was his for denial of the Dauber?
He said it goes to weight, not admissibility. The 29%. I go, they're hiding the ball.
I know it.
They're hiding the ball. They're not telling you and pretending like
He wasn't buying your initial analogy.
I said it's like looking under a microscope at a drop of blood and saying that, yep, they broke their leg.
He said that was a bit of a stretch, he thought.
No. I kept saying this. I said, listen, they've got one result. It's not even a scientific number. It's 14. Like, it's not a 0.05. It's 14 once. Okay? So
Bam.
I said, I said, as you know, if that's the bullseye, are you going to make a bet that they're going to hit that bullseye the next shot? Or are you going to wait until they shoot again before you're going to put your bet down, right? Because the first one, it's the bullseye. They say it's 14.
He wasn't buying your argument that it was going to be. He wasn't buying
zero. It's over here. It didn't hit this bullseye. It hit the wall over here. I mean, he was
thinking it's going to be a little bit closer than that.
I said, okay.
Just by assumption only, Jim.
Yeah, but in science it should be, if it's not in the bullseye, it's a little outside. On the board, at least. You know, when you're talking 29% error rate, and they say the 14 could be 29% of that, whatever, maybe it's 50, 40, 50.
6
like
or something.
4.5. So the 15 is 11. And if you measure it again, it could be
272.
8.
It was the most bizarre arguments I've heard in my life going back and
He goes, where'd you get the 29% error rate? I was like, it's in the pleadings. It's Exhibit C. He's like,
yeah,
29%.
I mean, 20% error rate is crazy.
Yeah, it is. That means it's not science. 29% means.
I can hit 70% all day long,
I'm saying.
Jim.
70, 60, yeah, 70% of the time it's right. Every time.
Yeah, that's exactly. There's bits panther in
You know,
it,
this
so
issue, listen, I'm resolved, unfortunately, that I'm probably going to have to try this case before I get a judge to agree with me that what the fuck they're talking about is crazy, and that by a legal basis I shouldn't have to try this case, and it should, you know what I mean?
I don't know.
I'm probably going to have to, but I've said this, that in another case very similar, with no help of Alan Pizer, none whatsoever, I was unable to get the 2 or 3 witnesses, experts that I've been trying to get. He came up with a suggestion which I think could be masterful, and I really appreciate it, especially because I know that he's going to be helping out with the exorbitant fees for experts. And I'm glad to know we have Alan on board, and it's such a critical issue. And
Alan's paying for the experts?
He's helping out with it, I understand, because he's that kind of guy.
I am the expert.
Oh, I see.
Aren't I?
It went like this. He can remain nameless, but it was something like, I'm very, very expensive. And I was like, okay, I got to get somebody. This is a big case. You know, it's a big thing. It's like, yeah, but very expensive. And blah, 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 and I don't come to court ever. Where is the case? I don't testify. Have you been, you guys have been qualified as experts in these other civil things, but I don't come to court. I was like, listen, it's a student. It involves cannabis, and if she gets convicted, she may lose her scholarship. And he said, all right, I'll reduce the price in half, and I will come to court and make an exception for her because she's a student. It's still a shit ton of money, but it was menschy. So, Alan, I figured in that regard, we should be you should be taking up a coffer for us, or at least contributing, leading that charge. All right, good. You got a lot of things on your plate now. That's what happens when you zoom so wildly and freely without you zoom unprotected.
No regard.
Unprotected zooming, Alan, gets you in all kinds of trouble.
And utter
You are
disregard.
committed. You got the Cannabis Caucus.
Yeah.
You're heading up the expert feed.
Well, I wonder what's going on at the
Take down the
Caucus.
lab at Lab Scandal 3. Come on. You got all this, Alan? Come on.
I got it all. I got it all under control.
So, the legal advice, if asked to take a swab test, David, is what?
Don't take it.
What if
And
they
don't
want
talk-
you? What if they want you to take some field sobriety tests?
No,
Take-
sir.
Well, here's the thing: is that taking the field sobriety test every once in a while could save somebody because it makes extra time before they have to take the breath test.
That's less than 70%.
By case. But generally, they're going to say you failed the field sobriety test no matter how well you perform. It does not matter. They're designed to fail. They're going to say you failed if they believe you are intoxicated. Like 90% of officers are going to say that. So it's pretty much just building evidence against you, even if you're innocent, because an officer is now going to come in and testify that you failed these stupid fucking tests. So it's almost 99.9% of the time a bad idea to take field sobriety tests. It's 99.9% of the time. Well, the only times you want to take a PBT are when you're sober and you want to go the fuck home, you know? So then sometimes it's a good idea to take the PBT, but generally that's not a good idea either. The fine is worth not building fake evidence against you.
I gave that advice to someone that said, "We'll let you go if we just give you PBT," and if from the roadside, and they weren't, and they knew they weren't going to, so they did, and they were then freed. But I understand your point of the PBT and not refusing. I would say that it can and should be done in a polite way, and a person who's going to do this has to be in the mindset to say, I'm going to exercise my constitutional rights and not take any tests I'm not required. You know, there's a way to go through without seeming as a,
asshole. That's my thing with those, those pop brothers, pop brother lawyers in Texas that are like, I'm not talking about my day with you, officer. And they just I agree with the sentiment of shut the fuck up, but I don't agree with the sentiment of how they tell you to talk to the officer like he's an asshole, because it's like you're making them have a want to find a reason to arrest you, which is never really a good idea.
It's a podcast, and those guys are kind of abrasive. Yeah. I think that's part of the shtick that makes them appealable.
Yeah, I mean, it's cool and everything, but they don't need to be I have my clients that are just assholes to cops because of those guys sometimes.
The legal.
And
Go ahead. Sorry.
Doesn't make getting out of the traffic ticket much easier.
The
they could just be.
The legal advice is shut the fuck up. How you do that is not in a way that's it can and should be done without antagonism. All right, are we all ready for the Steve Miller review?
Mm-hmm.
Hold on. Any preview or things that we have to know about what we're about to embark on here, Jamie or Rick? You guys or David?
All right. We ready?
Yeah.
We're ready.
Just a blast off on the segment.
Yep.
All right. So
Next segment here, we have Steve Miller doing a guinea pig experiment. He will be utilizing a new technique.
Courtesy of Jimmy the Pepper.
Jimmy Pepper, where'd you pick that up?
This is from the first licensed provisioning center in Macomb County, which is in my hometown of Centerline.
And what kind are we smoking over there? What is it called?
I'm not sure. It's on the label.
It's Monster X, Terp Sugar, Gorilla Glue, number 4, I've never had 1, 2, or 3. Have you, Jim?
No, I've never even heard of 1, 2,
Amanda?
or 3.
Do you think they just went automatically to 4, do you suppose?
Maybe.
They probably did.
Jamie, Alan may know the history of the Gorilla Glue.
That sounds
Alan?
right up Alan's alley.
Alan, have you ever had Gorilla Glue 1, 2, or 3?
No.
It's a newer generation strain. Alan would know something about like.
Maybe Jamie would know.
Acapulco Gold or
Gorilla Glue's
some,
a pretty common hybrid, and they very typically produce a number of different strains of it before they find the one that expresses best. So probably was more than 4.
Number 4 is like the one that became the most popular, but for a long time, and I haven't seen it in a while, though, there was a couple other of those versions that were available, but number 4 has become the predominant go-to.
All right. Well, this is
my favorite strains are Acapulco Gold, Jamaican, and Colombian.
All right. Well, we're on back to the Monster X Terp Sugar Gorilla Glue. Gorilla Glue. That's tough to say, Jim.
It is. It's a
Gorilla
tongue
Glue
twister.
number 4. We've got about a gram of it. This is Amanda. Can you describe what we have here, please?
It's some type of nectar collector.
Nectar collector.
Yes.
It's
So
a
it's a nice,
collector of nectar.
easier tool for us to use because it's not just taking around a glass piece. It's like a silicone dealy. It's nice and
nifty,
easy
thrifty.
to transport.
Is it easy to clean?
It's easy to clean. It's very easy to clean. It's that tip is removable and replaceable. So,
Okay. How much do one of those tips cost you to replace?
You know, I would say just ballpark figure about 20, but you can get better ones and, like different types of nails. That one is just the standard titanium nail that it came with.
What about for the whole unit? What are we looking at here?
That one was
price-wise?
only, I looked on the internet, that was one of the top rated entry level nectar collectors at 25 bones
Okay,
on
that's not
Amazon.
bad.
No.
It's cheaper than glass.
Yes, and a nice place to start to see if you like the concentrate world.
Yeah, absolutely. What do you think, Michael?
Now, the nice thing about that terp sugar there is that first part of
Yummy.
the word, it's called terp.
Terp.
Right?
Terp.
So what that means is you're getting a lot of the beneficial terpenes and, the healing properties of the plant.
Yeah, I can feel it. Can feel it flowing through me, Jim. Like the Holy Spirit. The Holy Ghost, Jim. Can feel it. We might have been sampling early for a little practice for this section of the show.
Are you going to demonstrate?
I am going to demonstrate. Let's we've been talking enough of the talk. On to the doing. So we're going to fire this thing up. We're going to get the nail good and hot, preferably good and red if we can.
That torch
Like
is kind of running.
Oh, it's coming. Oh, it's getting hot.
Okay. For
Right.
educational purposes,
So,
we are
and then,
heating up what's known as the nail, and then Steve's sticking his
Now,
tip.
there he goes.
Tip
okay,
into the,
now he's going to show you.
That was way
Steve,
too
pick it up.
much. Was that way too much or what?
That was a lot.
It was too much and excessive.
That was a lot.
That
like,
technique is still being abused right now because the tip is still in the mashed potatoes. Take it out. You gotta take it out of the mashed potatoes.
That is correct, sir.
Just the tip.
Well, that was a lot of fun. It's been fun
Yes.
every time.
Yes.
The first time it takes a little bit getting used to. But second and third time, she just starts flowing smooth by time. Third time's the charm, Jim.
That's good.
It really is. And tastes yummy. I mean, you hear the word sugar in there, and it's kind of got a sweet flavor to it. It's very nice. And the effects are fantastic. I mean, it's a quadruple buds up, Michael.
Nice.
What do you think?
I think that you are predisposed to like sugar. You showed up today saying, I bought a real sugar lemonade at the gas station today. On the way
That's because
back.
everything is the damn high fructose corn syrup, and that's not good for anybody. So when you can find a pop, like the case of Coke I bought at Costco the other day from Mexico, that's Coke with real sugar in a glass bottle.
I like those.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, there we go.
I like those.
Boom.
So
it was
what I'm
$23
saying,
for that
with
case.
that reaction, of course he's gonna like this sugar.
Now, next week we're
He
going to
likes
be
this.
reviewing
This
a
thing is
different type.
sugar.
Yeah,
I'm just kidding. I'm
definitely.
joking.
So
Yes.
next week we'll have a different review. We'll probably still use the Nectar collector because it's nice and easy.
Yeah,
do we get
I
props?
like it.
So
We're not
I would
advertising.
like to try the diamonds with this.
Okay, yeah. Well, maybe we'll make that work for next week.
And all kinds.
Everyone stay tuned.
All kinds with the Nectar collector.
Maybe we'll have some of these for giveaways and calls in or something like that. We'll do something like that.
Yeah. People.
Yeah, absolutely. I was thinking of that earlier.
We can mail them.
Anybody
We can
has
mail them out.
Product out there that.
No,
okay.
nothing about product. Nothing. No, I'm saying
All
that.
right.
No product.
We could have like a raffle or something, and
I would like
give
to
that a
test
listening-
products.
Since we have, yes, that we're talking about. But what I'm
What,
saying,
like a pyramid scam?
we could raffle off
Multi-level
one
marketing?
of these things so people could try it at home.
Oh,
Yeah,
I
I
see.
think that's a great idea. We'll come out with. We'll put out some
I
details
could write up a
this week.
jingle for it.
Limited to adults over the age of 21, of course.
Yes. We'll put out a little
We could
contest
write a little
next
skit
week.
called Dirty
This
Dan
week.
and the Nectar Collector.
No,
Who have the mental
Dirty
capacity
Dan
to
and the
consent.
viral load. Oh, Dirty Dan.
Those viral loads.
Those viral
They've been
load.
around a couple weeks now.
Yeah. They
Dirty
have.
Dan.
They sure have.
Goddamn
just
Dirty Dan.
Still dirty.
He is dirtier than ever.
Hold on. So we talked a little about the kids. Rudoy left. Jamie.
Rudoy left?
Oh, he left?
I don't know.
What?
He leaves when he can.
You can't leave before the mention of Dirty Dan.
His level of attention is limited, and I think he just bolted.
Oh.
He's not coming back in. If he is,
well.
he's not even paying attention.
David, if you are listening, it was a pleasure
The,
talking to you
the
again.
LGBTQ opinion by the Supreme Court. What?
It's LBG. Isn't it? I thought it was LB.
Michael had it right, Alan.
Okay, I thought there was an A in there. Q&A.
Whatever. For right now, whatever. But Jamie, Rick, you guys got a thought or opinion on that? And it was an interesting because Justice Gorsuch wrote the lead opinion, and he is put on the bench for conservative reasons and value, and he held himself out as like a Federalist, but at the same time, the dissenting opinion by Clarence Thomas and who's the other one? What's his name?
Alito and Alito and
they both were like, oh, you're just
Kavanaugh. Kavanaugh, you're right.
your social manufacturing laws now. Like one Federalist said, I have to follow the law. That word says this. If sex is sex, then sex means in the workplace, gender. Yeah, the idea that you could get married and be gay and be married and lose your job for that is fucking insane, right? So, anyways, that was the point. The point is that the other legal aspects of the law drive this opinion. You can't ignore, and it's not, so it's interesting that Gorsuch's whole thing was a very sterilized, unemotional, objective application of the law, as it should be.
That's the way it should be, yeah.
And but the word on the street is that of the other issues that remain before the Supreme Court that are on the social issues, they're not going to go the same way. I mean, they may turn over Trump's tax returns, maybe, which is interesting and pending there. Maybe even before the election, maybe not.
I don't think we want them to.
Well, it's an issue before the court. It's an issue before the court. It's an issue of battle between the branches of whether they have the right to subpoena, really, and report records, and whether the investigation can continue, and if immunity is from everything, it can't even be investigated. You know what I mean? So that, and I think they lose those arguments. But there's other issues that remain. There's going to be issues about abortions, some issues about what do you call it? Dividing up the voting blocks. What do you call that?
Gerrymandering.
Gerrymandering.
I think. I don't know. But it's not a favorable court, and as Mike Whitty pointed out, a lot of the federal judges that now are on the court are not, they're I mean, they're put on the bench for certain reasons, because their belief is that they're going to be of a certain school of thought in academia. Right, Alan?
Yes, Eisenhower thought that about Earl Warren, and Earl Warren turned out to be the most liberal judge ever appointed.
Yep. Well, I do think there's a difference in the federal court system because they're appointed for life, and once you're in, you get past that, you can do whatever you want. You do what you think is right. Unlike the state court system, which still remains to be plagued because they have to vote and be popular. They have to be popular. They have to campaign amongst other politicians. You want to get a balance with other people that are like-minded, such as law enforcement folks and stuff. So I don't know. Jamie, Rick, get your thoughts in because I've had it.
Well, I mean, you started off by asking me, and then went on to kind of answer the question.
I'm sorry, I do that.
It's okay, but I want to reiterate that it is a really important ruling. Nonetheless, even though we are acknowledging that they haven't become a liberal court or anything like that, it is still cool that was the end result. And it is also interesting that Gorish took that process and didn't just take an immediate political position on it. So that could be promising for some other, when there are technical questions like that and they have big implications and stuff. So, yeah, not they're not fixed, but that was still good.
What I think is interesting about the case is what happened surrounding it. The Supreme Court finally got a taste of Donald Trump and what it means to piss off the president. He immediately started texting how the Supreme Court hated him and they had made this a political thing and they were trying to get involved on levels that the Supreme Court shouldn't. He really didn't make any friends in that august panel. So I think his response to it really was illustrative of a general sense of frustration. He helped to stack this court, turned it into a conservative court, and they're not doing what he wants. And his childishness is on full display now.
I think it was a well-reasoned opinion in that the 1964 Act they referred to prohibited discrimination on the basis of sex. And what they were talking about today was discrimination based on sex because of a person's preferences for a person of the same sex or a person, the other variations in LGBTQ. I can't think of all the initials today.
LGBTQ
Q and A.
plus.
Yeah. Whatever they are, but I think it was the right decision and an important decision.
I'm biased, of course. I like to believe that of our falling apart three-branch government, that there are some remnants of do the right thingness in the judicial system, maybe. Like this could be an example, right? But even though you have someone picked to vote against these kind of issues who's writing the majority opinion, does so under the pretext of a judicial philosophy, which is the same judicial philosophy of two other people on the court that dissented. You know what I mean? So it's fascinating, but it's almost reason to believe that in Rick, it's interesting. I think of all of the. I mean, none of those anything bad said about a federal judge on Twitter or whatever. It doesn't matter. Like they can't get rid of them. They're appointed for life. They're probably the more powerful people that exist in government than most people realize. They've writ power. They can, it's extraordinary.
That would be another example of stroke of the pen.
Stroke of the pen.
But my point is that they're I say this. I'd like to believe that there are a lot of people on the bench, whether they're Republicans or Democrats, or whatever, that are over Trump, and they're certainly not effectuated by his tweeting. You know what I mean? Like that's not a thing like that. Like the level of intellect, you'd like to think at that level that's making these kind of decisions is much different. And likewise have the appointment cover. They can't be, even if he's right, they can't be removed. They're not going to be removed. They're not like a vote can come up. Some of Trump's tweets can break businesses and they can ruin people in their elections and whatnot if he starts coming after you. So I'm saying, but I also, I don't know. I'm not a big fan of the way that the courts have reacted to a lot of this stuff, and I'm even more disappointed that it doesn't seem like anything's going to change, and that they likewise are responsible for all the things that we've been complaining about for the last 12, 15 years that have come to boil.
People have yet to realize that it's more so the courts and the prosecutors than it is the police that they're mad at right now.
But the
peel back the layer a little bit and look behind those police and who condones the bad ones' behavior. The judges and the prosecutors. Said it once and I'll say it again.
You're right, and I would say, but I do think that there's, I don't, and it varies from jurisdiction to jurisdiction. Al, what am I trying to say? I'm trying to say that some of the federal judges, because they're appointed for life, because they are usually drawn from a, I don't know. I mean, this may not be the right thing. Maybe we need more diversity. Maybe all that stuff. I'm saying that, they're usually, I don't know.
I think what you're saying is the federal judges are not afraid to do the right thing because they don't have to be worried about being reelected. They have the independence to rule whatever way they want. They can piss off whoever they want. They don't have to worry about getting vilified in the press. The only person that can remove a federal judge once they've been appointed is the Senate. The Senate can impeach them. Otherwise, they're there for life and good behavior.
But the purpose, though, of my statement was that a judge can make a decision that's either broadly encompassing or very narrowly delivered. Oftentimes, their decision on how wide they want to go or how narrow they want to go may have some political implications. This is why we have conservative courts versus liberal courts. We see oftentimes people legislating from the bench, as we've seen, right? So if you are predisposed towards a conservative position, but you may not like President Trump, perhaps you author your opinion in a way that doesn't necessarily support the specific things that he's saying. If you're Kavanaugh and you got all there because Donald Trump held a beer bong up to your throat and you basically shotgunned your way to the Supreme Court, then maybe you write an opinion that's more favorable to the president's positions, unless the president has been pissing you off.
It's interesting that there's even part of the narrative of judges being conservative or liberal in a way, because they may be that way politically, but there is not, you could call it a liberal opinion that someone writes or a conservative opinion or whatnot, but it's not really that. In order for someone to write an opinion, they should be doing it on the jurisprudence. Jurisprudence doesn't have a political party. I mean, it may in the end of the day, Rick, but the court is unaffected by it. I guess my point, I guess, is that I'm trying to find some hope. So just bear with me. It's not a lot of it. But in our failing, broken government, if you have a part of the court system that can do the right thing when called upon, and there's principles of and pillars of our society that hold up our,
Not to make the conversation weird, but ponder this. What if Trump just bets on the Supreme Court's going to do the right thing now that he's got 5 conservative ones on there? He bets on they're going to do the right thing while he puts on a show to appeal and continue to feed his base that will never leave him. They'll always be there, but he throws them a few bones like this every now and then. And in the background, he's betting on the Supreme Court's going to do the right thing. What about that?
I don't think he thinks that deeply.
I don't know. What if he does?
Well, what if a lot of things, I guess.
I mean,
it's just a perspective to look at it at.
Quoting him early in his presidency, when asked about his immigration policy being overturned, his response about the federal judge was, "He's Mexican." No, he was American. He's an American citizen. He's of Mexican descent. I'm trying to keep them out. Like that kind of dialogue back and forth is laughed at in federal judge circles. And some idiot judge that would think that that's okay to say would be laughed out of federal court circles of intellect. People that hang out together. Like, there's no way that stupidity that they say because someone's fucking of Mexican descent, born in the United States, citizen, that is somehow impacting their opinion. I mean, the whole point, most of the times it's the opposite. Most of the time, if you could make that case, the judge is doing the opposite of what you would think their stereotype would be. You know what I'm saying? Unfortunately. Mm-hmm. Jamie, I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, that's all right. So just not to, even before this, Trump pissed off Chief Justice Roberts.
Yeah.
By referring to some of the justices by either being Obama justices or Bush justices or whatever. And, he made an unusual, response. And so
he lashed out at Trump, yeah.
What do you say to him? Was this Roberts, John Roberts?
Yeah, he said we don't have Obama justices and Trump justices. We are the Supreme Court. We do our thing as our branch, and that's it. And that's ridiculous to characterize it like that. He was upset.
Well, there's that case, Marbury versus Madison. Alan, you want to report on that for a little while? But it holds the judicial branch as the final arbiter of disputes amongst the branches. Yeah.
They dispute everything.
That's the final
and
say.
Then they arbitrate it.
Final say.
Although a very powerful Senate could start impeaching all the judges.
Yeah, they could, but we got to go.
Well, before we go, McConnell's only concentrated on getting judges.
That's it.
Appointed, not any other business really.
That is it.
It's a good strategy.
They all could lose. It could be they could all win too. I don't know. I'm just saying shit. I don't know anything about it.
I think things are going to get goofy.
Oh yeah, they are.
I do want to thank Tommy for over there
Wonderful
in the bunker
spread.
for the awesome spread.
Yes, thank you, Tommy.
Coming through
Coming
strong.
through as usual.
Man, better than Princess Tommy.
Yeah,
that was.
I would say.
All right, I think we're good. Everyone having fun? Everyone having enough? Let's call it.
All right.
Good night, everybody.
Guys, thanks for joining.
Good night, you guys. Thank you.
Good
Thank
night,
you very
everyone.
much. Good
Thanks
night.
for watching. See you next week.
Booms are a man.
Boom.
The Planet Green Trees Show.
Join the Michigan Medical Marijuana Association today. MichiganMedicalMarijuana.org. The MMMA is focused on the well-being and safety of medical marijuana patients. The MMMA site provides the most comprehensive and up-to-date news on legal issues, politics, research, cultivation, as well as the various strange products and methods of cannabis use. Come join the discussion with the most knowledgeable and passionate advocates in Michigan today. MichiganMedicalMarijuana.org.
taking photos. Social media is where this is at. Next year, this should be 10 times as big. Post your photos. Next thing, if you got a joint, now's the time to pull it out.
Hey, welcome back. I was digging those tunes. I was jamming. Really, if I wore underwear, I would throw them on stage, but I don't wear any underwear. We'll come back to that. But anyway, I have someone really awesome to introduce you guys to. He is basically going to be the first ever virtual dancing and, you know, the tunes coming out with the cannabis plants. Tom Wall is going to be jamming out with his plants, and this is going to be something you do not want to miss. Tom?
How's it going? So, hopefully, can you guys hear me well?
Yep.
Okay, you guys can hear me good? Okay. So, what I'll do is I'll just start off giving a little bit of an explanation on the technology that I'm going to use to perform this. But this device takes two electrodes, one that hooks up to the leaf of the plant, and then one that hooks up to the root. And the one that hooks up to the root looks just like a spike like that. And it goes down in the roots. And through the two, what happens is it can register the electromagnetic fluctuations between the two, and it basically makes a wave pattern. Through that wave pattern, assign musical notes per size of the wave, allowing it to generate music. But the interesting thing about it is that when I got into this, and I've done it with all sorts of different types of plants, but that they not only can play music, but they can play music with you. And they seem to kind of respond to what you do. So I don't know how this is going to go, but I plan on obviously doing this in the Diag, and I was kind of really going to be surprised to see how it would react with that many people around. But this particular variety here is called Cosmic Splooge, and the name of our band, Cosmic Knot, came out of trying to name a cannabis strain a long time ago. And it's the idea of looking for a particular flavor that's very rare. It's kind of like along the lines of Acapulco Gold and the Colombian Gold. You can't find it very often anymore. But this is the culmination of a lot of years of searching, and it's still not quite there, but we're really happy to have this. So this is the Cosmic Splooge plant that really started the whole thing in the first place. But I think we should have it all hooked up now. So let me turn up the volume and allow you guys to hear what it sounds like by itself, and then I'll chime in with it, and we'll try and do a duet. And then I'll let it back to you guys because I know we're trying to keep things rolling. So without further ado, this is the first time a cannabis plant has made music that I know of on any videos, let alone on a virtual form and live facet. So this is really cool. And the fact that this is for Hash Bash is even cooler. 50 years ago, people were going to prison for this, and now we get to have a plant play for everybody. So here we go. that translated well. The type of music has been called organoleptic music, meaning organoleptic is evaluating with the senses, and then flora meaning plants, so plants evaluate with the senses. Creating music, so organoleptic music, it's a new variety that just kind of came to life in the recent times, and I've been lucky enough to stumble across it and figure out how to play music with plants, and they seem to play very beautifully along with you. They kind of follow you. It's really strange. But I really appreciate all you guys getting together, and once again putting this on and making this happen still and persevering through all the madness. Really cool that you guys were able to do this, and thanks for everything. Thanks for having me on. I'm gonna let you guys keep on rolling because I know you got a lot to do still. So there's a bunch of amazing musical acts still coming up. So I think Nectar is up on deck right now, and then we got a few other artists after that are gonna be really awesome as well. So to hang out, chill out, and have a good time listening to some amazing music. Thanks everybody. Have a great night.
Thanks, Tom.
That was pretty cool, man. So that was the first. It was captured here.
Will work. Everybody take a photo. Social media is where this is at. Next year this should be 10 times as big. Post your photo. Next thing, if you got a joint, now's the time to pull it out.
Komorn Law. Michael Komorn is one of the top attorneys in Michigan that has experience and dedication in criminal defense law. Komorn Law can take your case from arrest all the way from trial, appeals, and even to the Supreme Court. The team at Komorn Law has the compassion and the experience you can look to for help in your time of need. Komorn Law has over 25 years experience in criminal defense. We have accomplished numerous legislative changes through community involvement and lobbying. Our award-winning law firm has a reputation like no other for keeping overreaching government accountable and in check. We have built Komorn Law for people who need lawyers to stand up to the system, fight back and win. Once we become your lawyer, you become a part of our family. Don't settle for less, just ask our clients. Komorn Law, the best damn criminal defense lawyers, period.